and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 182nd take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star studio of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show, 2 for the price of 1 tonight, and an excellent story to boot with a little bit of romance. Yeah, you guys thought I was a big hard ass when I'm really just a big softie. But we're going to talk about nice guys finishing last or first or something in between here in the first couple of minutes here. So stay tuned for that. But before we get to the introduction of our fabulous guests tonight, let's thank the people that make this show possible. That, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate announces the Drew Estate Goodwill Act of 2021. It's an initiative designed to honor the spirit of the 2021 Barn Smoker Program in DE25 celebration by deploying a token of appreciation to those who purchased tickets to attend these events that were unfortunately canceled or postponed due to the rise of the COVID-19 Delta variant. The Drew Estate Goodwill Act of 2021 will be executed in the following manner. All those who purchased a ticket for Drew Estate from any of those 3 remaining Barn Smoker events of 2021, which included Connecticut, Kentucky, and Florida, or D25, will receive a Goodwill gift pack featuring new and never received seen before Drew Estate swag items that are specifically designed to lift the spirits of those who received the sad news about cancellation. So stay tuned. If you were one of those great people who actually purchased tickets ahead of time and were as sad as the rest of us that these events were canceled, tune in for your Goodwill gift packs. They'll be shipping out of Drew Estate in about mid-December. So stay tuned for that. Thanks as always to Drew Estate, our sponsor here for ELOSOFUMARTAKES, and we appreciate all those for tuning in. So without further ado, welcome back to our 182nd take. Welcoming tonight our featured guest, sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today. Start living united. Mr. Matt Tabacco and Miss Smokin Nicole. I don't even know what to call your last name, Nicole. Welcome, everybody. How are we doing tonight?
Well, should be honored and privileged to soon have the Tabacco last name, which is a
Yeah, see, I didn't want to jump the gun. You know, that would just been rude. You know, and that would be presumptive of me, right? Like she needs to take your last name, right?
Well, I mean,
I am.
I'm just saying. You know. I mean, again, just all assumptions aside, you know, it's 2021, guys. You can't assume anything these days, you know?
Right.
But who wouldn't want tobacco as their last name?
I mean, seriously, like when I even told my sister, like who my guest was tonight, I was like, you know, his last name is literally Tabacco. And she's like, is you kidding? And I was like, no, it's not a joke. Actually, it wasn't that funny, man. I'm going to tell funnier jokes tonight. It's okay.
No, the water just went down the wrong pipe.
Getting off to a great start here.
Yeah, fantastic.
I was all
well, he figures that out, Matt. While Matt figures that out, Nicole, we do have a couple of one thing to talk about here. So I thought this was pretty interesting. So Matt was asking me about the weather, and everyone loves talking about the weather and how wonderful it is. But next to my weather report in my Facebook was an article from BuzzFeed. It's 15 subtle signs that actually show that someone is a really good person. So I thought this would be an interesting list to go down a couple of items and just decide if we're really good people or if we're just pretending to be. So here we go. Number 1, they actually make space for someone who is being ignored in a conversation. So
I would say I try to do that.
I mean, I don't know about you.
Well, I mean, seriously, I mean, I think it's just, you know, if someone's actually involved in the conversation, but they're being spoken over everything, I don't know if that has to be being a good person. I think that's just genuinely like not rude or being like rude to the rude person. Is that really just being nice if you're being rude to the rude person who's like talking over this person who's trying to say something? I don't know if that makes me genuinely nice.
Conversation etiquette is an interesting one because there's so many things at play. There's the subtle like yeah sure when the conversation just continues to carry on and on and on, and you just kind of nod and go yeah sure.
Is that what you're doing to me right now, or?
No, I couldn't do that to you. Barry,
okay,
because I care about you too much.
Oh, that's sweet.
I feel like some people, though, they don't pay attention to things like that. Who's not talking, who is talking, whereas some people kind of look from the outside and they're more aware.
Some people are socially awkward. They don't know how to jump in, and they don't want to like step on someone's toes, or they don't want to like input something they think might not be relevant. There's so many ways it could go. I don't know if you can really put a set of rules to it to identify if someone's a good person or not, without being like really specific.
Well, here's one that's not specific and pretty ambiguous, actually. So reason number 3, I skipped number 2. They ask how you're doing and actually mean it.
Yeah, but you got to prove that. Unless
Yeah,
you really
I was like,
sniffing
how
it
does one
out.
actually prove that they actually do actually mean what they say when they're asking how you're doing?
Hey,
I mean,
Bear, how are you?
I'm good.
Really?
Are you doing
I'm
good?
Like, really? Like, are
I
you
could
really
give a
asking
shit.
me, or
I
like, are
could
you
give a
really
shit.
okay?
No, I'm just kidding.
I was just.
But see what I did there? Like, just
Yeah.
like, hey, how are you?
Hey,
I don't care. I have to
hey.
ask you though.
Yeah. I am splendid. I'm splendid. I got to see my sister for the first time in almost over 2 years today.
Oh wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, COVID. Appreciate that. But that was wonderful to see her. She was on a layover, so it wasn't for very long, but it was really great to see her. She got to see my youngest son, or her nephew, for the first time ever too, which was also really cool.
That's really
That
cool.
was a really great experience. But shout out to my older sister who's traveling back your way. She lives in New York, so and by your way I mean East Coast, not New England, but
right.
because let's
Up here
not
somewhere.
yeah,
We're in the Northeast.
let's not associate New York with New England because that's inaccurate. So, but anyway, just I'm not going to go through the actual 15 things of listing. I was just like, I thought this was an interesting concept, and like I started reading through these things, and I was like, oh man, like it's like really, really ambiguous. And I also think that I do a lot of these things, and I don't really want to lose my street cred. So
Fair.
Yeah, don't expose yourself.
yeah, I think that's fair. But listen, like we've got a great story with the two of you on tonight, and I am actually genuinely, as we're talking about being sincere, I am genuinely excited to talk to you about it because I chuckle my way through that. But I kind of want to go through a couple of things here. First of all, what are we smoking? What are we drinking tonight? I mean, are we kicking back? Are we laid back? Or are we professionaling it up here? What are we doing?
Well, as I like to say, we're serious about what we do, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. So there's a combination of things that we each have. We both have an espresso coffee with Buffalo Trace's bourbon cream, which is very delightful. Nicole has her own bourbon. I'll let her introduce hers. I actually am about to pop open an E.H. Taylor small batch, just a little something simple for this wonderful Sunday night.
I'm finishing an Eagle Rare as well, so it is a whiskey night.
Mm-hmm.
Plus we have water. We're all about the fluids when we're smoking. We have like an array.
It's kind of like Carney. We're pulling a John Carney right now.
Yeah.
John will have like a water, a wine, or some other alcoholic beverage, and then he'll have like some other beverage too, because he doesn't do coffee, but he'll have like he always has like 3 drinks going. Oh yeah, it's so funny. A water, an alcohol, and actually sometimes it's like water, wine, and then like a cocktail.
Right.
Doubling up on that.
Yeah. So I'm pulling. I like to say I'm pulling a Carney tonight. I got 3 different beverages here.
In smoking, so I am smoking a God of Fire Carlito. Love that Cameroon wrapper. That's what I was in the mood for, and it goes great with this coffee.
Yeah, I had a little pre-show. I had a pre-show cigar going. I had the new St. Francis from All Saints Cigars. Shout out to Mickey Peg. Love you, buddy. I decided though before the show that I'm gonna let that rest and I'll finish it later because I want to smoke something very similar to what Bear is potentially going to be smoking tonight. So Bear, why don't we get into what you're smoking first, and then I'll come back.
Well, shout out to Brandon Payne of Michael's Tobacco for putting aside some Tatuaje T110s for me, and got me a broadleaf one right here that he was kind enough to get me. So I'm gonna honor him tonight and smoke the T110. I've got a lineup of some good stuff. This is a shorter smoke. I'm sure I'll enjoy it for quite a long time, but I've got a lineup tonight of some backups here, including the latest and greatest from Alec Bradley, the trilogy, the tri-pressed cigars, the exotic Maduro. The lowercase a from our friends at McAuliffe, which is rep exclusive. You actually have to know a rep, and so shout out to Sam Spencer and Brandon Luna for getting me these earlier this week. So got that on the horizon. But what are you gonna which one are you gonna smoke on there, Matt?
So I have all three of the new Tatuaje T110s in front of me, and I'm going to go with the Capa Especial Sumatra T110 right here. This was actually recently rated a 91 on Half Wheel, which from what I understand is because I don't usually follow a lot of reviews anymore, but they gave it a 91, which is unusual for them. It's a very high score. So I had these sitting around, and I said, all right, I'm going to go for it. And when you said you had one, I said, I'm going to have one. So I'm going to cut that now, and I'm going to light that up.
I'm going old school. I'm going to match, but that's I like to roll that way. So
Here we go.
do you like Sumatra in general, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
So over
I don't
like
don't smoke
Cameroon,
like a-
Cameroon over Sumatra, or Sumatra over Cameroon? 'Cause
Wow.
I know you're a fan of both.
I would definitely probably go Cameroon first, just because I smoke a lot more Cameroons, and I'm really in love with a lot of the Cameroon stuff that's out there. But I mean, Sumatra's up there too. I mean, I enjoy a good Sumatra. Huge fan of that. And I have to say, the T110s as a whole, like no matter which one of them it is, it's probably been one of my. It's been on like the top 5 probably cigars that I've been excited to try this year. Another one being the new Ferio Tego cigars that will be coming out shortly. So I actually haven't had them yet. I have like 6 of them that I picked up. Shout out to Twin Smoke Shop, Kurt Kendall. And so this is my first one, and
This is my first one as well. So
Oof.
I know I'm behind. So I'm like really uncool because I'm like everyone's already smoked their supply out probably.
Oh, I know, right? I've been watching everyone smoke it, and then I'm like, oh, I got to get to it. And I don't know. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm waiting for. But then tonight I'm like, you know what? No, the buck stops here. I got to do this. So here we are. We are lit. I was expecting a lot more pepper up front, and there's not a lot. But it's a very smooth smoke. Good draw, nice loose draw, a lot of smoke. It's a Oof. That's good.
Yeah, the Capa Especial to me always had like this delicacy about it. Like it didn't I haven't recalled a really overly peppery note with it, which is kind of like that My Father signature, right? Like Pepin has
Right.
that sharpness of a lot of his blends and stuff. I mean it's not like in every single one. I'll tell you what, like, is this really you guys want to get deep and crazy here. So one of the big telltale signs for me that a cigar was blended by Pepin is I can smell the foot pre-light and it smells like there is a heavy peppery smell. But I don't sneeze. Like it doesn't like tickle the nostrils. It's really bizarre.
Really?
It's really bizarre. And yeah, and that, from there I can almost pick apart that it's a Pepin cigar, which is really interesting. A little bizarre. One of those little things you pick up. It's like that's obviously my body telling me something. Like I don't necessarily think that would be like it for everybody else, but that's usually the telltale sign for me that it was Pepin for me. I don't know. Crazy times. But again, shout out to Brandon, who's actually joining us tonight. He's actually lighting up one as well. So we've got a lot of T110s being smoked tonight. So good stuff. But wanted to again, kind of again, we're going to get into the story behind you guys and what y'all have been doing at Smokin Tabacco and everything. So, but but I kind of want to put the cats out of the bag. We're going to tell, I'm sure we're going to get into a little bit of the story a little bit before, but you guys are engaged to be married. So congratulations formally on the show in the audience. I think I've congratulated you several times, but here it
Well, I
is.
mean, you were kind of there when it happened too. We were all in Vegas.
Yes,
together.
yes. I was in the general vicinity,
Yes.
within several blocks. But yes, it was a very beautiful, happy moment to get that text from you, sharing the good news. And so, but yeah, congratulations once again to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bear.
So has the wedding date been selected? We got to ask these proverbial important questions that are stereotypical yet important.
Nicole can answer all wedding related questions.
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
We have a list of priorities and we're trying to do house before wedding. So
Yeah,
that's kind of our order. So eventually.
but she already has a lot of ideas for the wedding itself, which is easy.
Yes.
Good. And they're all great ideas, Matt. Just giving you, this is 11 years of marriage talking over here. They're all great. They're all great ideas.
No BS though. I know what you're trying to say, but honestly, like I'm good with it. Actually, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm in the same.
There are a
boat.
lot of cigars involved.
Yeah.
Then they're all great
So,
ideas, even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which actually brings up the next question though. What's the over under on the amount of industry people that are going to be invited to the wedding?
Well, that's an interesting one because the wedding itself, it's probably going to be a very small, intimate wedding. However, we have toyed around with the idea of having some other kind of celebration with some industry people, and we haven't put that together yet. So there's a good chance it could be it could be a cigar industry party, where we have a little wedding celebration and invite a bunch of people too. So yeah.
And it will probably be in Vegas.
Yeah. Probably
Well,
in Vegas.
I was going to ask you because I know you're such a huge fan of the city itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know if that would like, and the way the Vegas wedding has lost like so much of that proverbial like stereotype, you know,
The elopement at the chapel. Yeah.
Yeah,
no. And that's not what we're doing either. It would be, more of a nicer wedding. That's just the place we want it to be. But yeah, I know what you're saying. It has changed. It hasn't. It's gone from like we're eloping to Vegas, and now it's like, wow, we're going to Vegas and having like a whole wedding. It's like, oh, okay. So I know that she already has ideas of places and settings that she wants. So
well, one of my friends from high school got married at the Mandalay Bay, and it was not an elopement. Let me just say it that way. And he's not from Vegas, so like, yeah, it was a destination wedding that was like just happened to be in Vegas, but it was massive. Like this was a massive wedding. I'm like, why did we have to fly here to do this? He's like, I love this place. I'm like, okay, cool, nice.
Yeah, our point of flying there is that less people will go. So that's part of it. But no,
if we do it around a time when people from the industry will be in town, then
we'll do something separate.
we'll do something separate.
Yeah.
For them.
It also may or may not involve renting out a cigar lounge in Vegas.
That's true. That's very, very true. One particular one that most people really enjoy to go to at Caesar's Palace. That's not Casa de Monte Cristo.
Are you talking about the hat? Are you like the company that's represented by the hat that Nicole's wearing, or are we talking?
I don't know. I can't confirm or deny.
Wow,
All I know is
tough customer tonight. This can be a hard interview.
yeah, I'm gonna make you earn this one.
But yes, our cigars will be involved.
Mhm.
And it will be a wonderful affair. That's all.
Well, and this is a great part of your story, which kind of leads us into tonight's major point. So, and every show's major point is sponsored by a Protocol Cigars. Power of the P. Tonight's show major point is always brought to you by the people, cigar people, the people who know everything about a lifetime of service. Protocol Cigars is more than just pool parties and good times. Well, maybe it is. But behind the fun is a motivation for service, a motivation for giving back. And from the original Protocol Blue to the latest release in the Lawman series, Bass Reeves, Protocol has always been about honor, passion, and yes, the people. It's what their life's work has been and always will be about. Power of the P, Protocol Cigars. So, guys, I'm really, it's all sincerity. I know we've kind of joked around for the top of the show and everything like that. But in all sincerity, I really am genuinely excited to have you all on the show, because I think your story is incredibly unique, and I think it's actually it's a lot of fun to, but it's also, you know, there's a lot of I mean, almost twists and turns that kind of led us all to here, because, you know, we were talking about the Smokin Tabacco just turned 2. A lot of people don't know that the brand is 2 years old, but the podcast, which you guys both co-host along with our good friend John Carney, it just turned 1 year old. So now I want to kind of go back to the beginning here. So Matt, you've been smoking cigars for a while, but not too terribly long, and you had spent some time on a different podcast. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you kind of got started in cigars, and kind of right up until the point where you decided that you wanted to start smoking tobacco? Where did it all start for you?
Sometime around 2017 is about when the cigar smoking really started for me. And you know, when I first tried them, started going to cigar shops and just grabbing different stuff and smoking what I could, figure what was what. That was that was the beginning of the journey, and then, you know, it just kind of exponentially grew from there. It wasn't until around 2019 when I just I had gotten out of a previous relationship, a long-term relationship, and there was a lot of major changes going on in my life. And I was talking to one of my best friends, and he had suggested the idea of doing something with cigars, because, you know, at that point it was a regular ordeal for me, and, you know, I was starting to kind of figure out a little bit of stuff. I didn't know a lot, but I knew enough to get by. And he was like, you know, hey, you know, like, specifically with my last name being what it is, you know, he was like, well, how cool would it be if maybe you did something with cigars and you incorporated it, like with your last name or whatever, like in the whole thing. And like, it's always been a joke, but like, why don't you, instead of just continuing it to be a joke, to actually do something with that? And I was like, I don't know, like, what would I do? And he was like, well, start on social media and work your way up. And I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? What's the end
I
game
was going to say, what is that? Work your way up
What
to
does that
what?
mean? And this is a friend of this friend of mine, is I'll shout out my one of my best friends, Edwin. He's a typical salesman. You know, he's trying to sell me on this whole idea without actually like telling me what I'm buying. You know what I mean? He could sell ice to the Eskimos. And so I'm like, all right. And he said it first. He said, you can call it Smokin Tabacco, but like your last name, because my last name is spelled slightly different. It's Tabacco. So you can call it that. I was like, all right, that's a cool name, and I like the idea. I'm like, I just don't know what to do with it now. So like I kind of started like the first like month or so, it was like Instagram, Facebook, just like a page for like cigar stuff. And then within the next few months after that, I decided to start my own website, and I opened my own website, and I started to build a website. And then when the pandemic happened, you know, John Carney had traveled all the way up to back to Maine, where he's from. And while he was up there, you know, he didn't have much going on. I mean, he was working remotely, you know, doing, you know, LFD business, but he wasn't really no one was really hitting him up, as he likes to say in this story. And I was, and he was like, yeah, and we were going live all the time. We were going live on Instagram and live on Facebook. And then he was like, hey, because everyone, if you know John Carney, you know how he is. He's very creative. He gets excited, he gets a lot of ideas, and he likes to execute them. And he was like, we're gonna do like this show on Facebook, and it's gonna be a whole thing, and I'm gonna put it together for May Day Eve. We're gonna call it May Day Eve Massacre. It'll be like the Smokin Tabacco show. I was like, okay. And I didn't know what the hell he was doing, and I didn't know I just thought we were gonna go live on Facebook and like shoot the shit and whatever. And then he was like, oh, I got Brian McGee from Crown Heads to come on. He's a friend. I'm like, oh, all right, cool, yeah, it's all good. He puts together this whole thing, makes this title card with the logo, and it says live, and got the royalty-free song to like play as an intro. And we did it, and 20 minutes in, it just was an epic failure, and it crashed, and his laptop crashed, and like the feed was lost, and didn't really go too well. And I just remember being like, what the hell are we doing here? I don't even know. Like, we got this show, you want to call it. And he's like, you know what? We're doing this again next week. Next Thursday, same time. I'm like, all right, sure, whatever. And we did it again, and it went well. And we actually got like a full length show. And I think at that one was Andy Yaffe and Jared Saunders from McAuliffe, I believe. And it was the first one, obviously, where we're like, all right, we got it down with very minimal issues, and we just kept going, and we've never stopped. So in that time, it was kind of like, all right, well, now we have this show, but I don't want to just be another show, because especially
Was that
during
frustrating for you though? Sorry to interrupt. Like, was that
No.
frustrating for you, or like, because you seem like the way it made it sound like you wanted there to be a purpose or a goal, and there wasn't. It sounds like there was like this overall like foundation of something, but you kind of wanted some direction on it, or
I would say the first few months, yeah, because I was like, I don't know which. I knew I wanted to be involved in the media aspect, but I just didn't know what my avenue was going to be. And I went through so many different ideas, and it was like podcasting wasn't my first priority or idea, I should say. I had, as you had mentioned, I was on a podcast already. I was doing the Ashholes podcast at Two Guys Smoke Shop, and I was doing that every Tuesday. So, but doing it for myself, never even thought to do it, or was like, I don't want to get into that. It's so much work. So it was always just kind of like, well, I do that, and that's another thing. But in that time, I learned how to do podcasting, how to put it together and how to promote it. And
You had interviewed guests already.
yeah, like I had that experience. So I did have that, but I didn't know, like, which way I wanted to go. And I was like, well, I don't want to go the influencer route, because I don't want that. I want to do something that's more involved. And, I had a lot of influence from, people like Coop and, and Half Wheel and the guys at Dojo and people like you. And I'm like, I want to do more stuff like that, but without really, I just really didn't know how I was going to swing this. But then the show started, and that took off, and it became successful. And I'm like, okay. And then I decided to beef up the website and make the website more involved, and start doing, articles and news and press releases. And it kind of just slowly formed as I figured out not only, what I was doing, but how to do it. And just, it got to a point where I was like, all right, I know where I'm going. And now it's just focusing on how do I make it better? And like every day, it's always just been, what can I do to make it better? How can I push just a little bit further, go a little bit above and beyond, more than I did yesterday? And that's kind of what has led us here. And now, as we sit here, you go to the present day, we have two shows. The Smokin Tabacco show every Thursday. Every other Saturday, there's the Spare Notes show.
spare parts, spare
There
notes.
you go. I purposely paused to give you that, because I knew you were going to say it, with William Cooper. We have a full-fledged website with tons of content on it that we do, and then we're all over social media, YouTube, and just everywhere.
I do want to give just a fun little tidbit of information. So we had met online during COVID. So we had started talking like at the beginning of April. So before the show, at the first episode of the show.
Right. This is something I wanted to get into. So this is great.
And we were, it's during quarantine. So a lot of our dates were outside walking around, like, when we could, when we were trying to date, we were doing a lot of Zoom dates, if you will, things like that. But he goes, oh yeah, so like I have this show as part of my brand, you should watch it. And it was the first episode, and I watched it, and I'm like, I'm dating this guy, just met. And like the show shits out 20 minutes. I'm like, what kind of show is this?
It was Carney's fault.
It was just like him and John talking about
I'm
cigars.
sticking to my guns. It's Carney's fault.
And I'm like, this guy has a show. This is the worst show ever. Like, what is this? Sorry, had to Had
And
to
that's when
kind
you
of
had,
make
that's,
that
you had to
Yeah, no,
decide.
yeah.
That's when you had to decide of like, do I really want to date a project, or is this like?
no, but I was just like, he made it out to be this big thing, and and it was the May Day Eve, and the
Nice.
massacre came after that because it
20
was just
minutes,
called the
20
May
minutes
Day
in, the
Eve
massacre came in.
special. The massacre is what it was called after it was kind of botched.
That's funny.
Which I mean, that was actually a pivotal point, right? So that was part of the reason I ended up getting involved, because they needed, as we continued dating and whatnot, I was furloughed from work. And I was bored. I was like, hey, I can help you with your website stuff. And so I just jumped in and the show stuff.
No, that's awesome. Man, that's such a perfect segue, but I want to kind of go back to a couple things real quick, just to unpack some stuff here, because I think there's a couple of interesting questions that I'm really curious to get your perspective on, and please, both of y'all, feel free to do this, because I think both y'all's perspective might be different on this. I think that, like there's quite a few cigar media brands out there, and our good friend Matt Ty and Garrett Robinson, when they started How About That Cigar, Matt said to me, he's like, yeah, I'm doing this project, and before it was actually announced and everything, it was hush hush. I don't, obviously they've been going strong now for over a couple of years now, but when we talked very beginning, when he started the project, he was like, he had a very, I didn't know about it until it was actually the formation, the culmination of the idea, but he had a very precise foundation of and identity and direction that he wanted the brand to go, and it's, of course, it's evolved over time, as mine has, and obviously as yours has, and we'll kind of get into that. But Matt, you were talking about with your friend who were encouraging you to do this and everything, and of course, our good friend John Carney got involved pretty early on with you. But if you could kind of go back to a moment, like what was the identity? What did you want to identify as? What was that niche within the niche of cigar media that you thought you could do different?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I saw when I looked around was the age. I'm significantly younger than the majority of who else is out there doing cigar media. At the time when the brand began, I was 25. And so, which is very young for a cigar smoker, by, I don't know, average standards or whatever. And you look around, there wasn't a lot of people even close to that age doing cigar media. I mean, I would say after myself, you know, you're pretty young, but I wouldn't say I would say you're pretty young for the group too.
I was gonna say, Nicole, did you like how he subtly called me old there? That was
I'm
really
like,
that was really that
tread
was
carefully.
God, I mean, I was like, man, that was quasi savage there, as he just kind of brushed
Well,
that
I mean, if you
underneath.
run down the list, you look at the guys on Cigar Authority, they're in their 50s, and I think Garofalo just turned 60. Coop's mid 50s. I'm not exactly sure how old Eric is from Dojo, but I know
Eric's an enigma, because like he says he's a certain age. He's the same as Matt Ty, who just turned 50, right, in Vegas. The
yeah.
trade show. He's not 50 years old. He
I was
just
gonna
keeps lying
say
about it.
Matt Ty's 50. Garrett is what, like 36, 37?
They both are in their 30s. They just keep lying about it, but
So
But before, like,
thanks,
the
Shay Davis.
cigar
I'm not in my
boom,
mid 20s. I appreciate that.
but there was a little cigar boom right with COVID, right? So
Sure.
when this was first became a thing, he's talking about people who were kind of out there before that point, and there wasn't that
existing
many
people.
Yeah.
I mean, and even still, I mean, there's not a lot of people, in their mid 20s who are doing it. And so I knew that I had an opportunity to bring something different to the table, being much younger, have a different perspective of it. And that was always kind of like my main like concept, idea, feeling,
Mhm.
with how I wanted to differentiate myself by being so much younger.
You did do some reviews in the beginning, unboxing.
Yeah, I mean,
like little
I
cigar
experimented
videos.
with different avenues of how wanted to present my content, and I found there was certain things I just didn't like, because it just wasn't. It wasn't my avenue. It's how I wanted to do it. I wanted to be live. I wanted to be on the show. I wanted to have conversations. I didn't want to do unboxings. I learned very quickly on I don't want to do reviews. It's not that I can't do reviews. I want to make that very clear. I can review cigars, and I can give you a full breakdown, and I can do a whole thing, but I just don't want to do it. And we've been building the team at Smokin Tabacco to include people who we're slowly getting people who do reviews for the brand. I don't want to do it myself. It's a very time consuming process and all that. And so I wanted to dedicate my time and energy into the show, specifically the most. And I didn't want to take away from that by just doing reviews all day. So, but yeah, I would say, the younger view, and then being able to attract other younger viewers and grow the younger cigar audience as a whole into the industry, has always been kind of my motivation, to get more younger people in, to keep the industry going. You got to pass that torch down. So, getting more people, in that younger age bracket, kind of in, to the whole cigar lifestyle, the industry, the community, was, I would have to say, my number one goal from the beginning.
So Nicole, we're going to bounce around a little bit on your story here. So same question to you. Like when you first got involved after the massacre, as you were talking about, what did you see it as, like, the identity or the point of emphasis that you wanted to make, or you wanted Smokin Tabacco to be collectively, not necessarily of how you fit into the picture, but how, like, globally, like, what did you think the identity of Smokin Tabacco? Were you pretty aligned with that, or did you have different goals as you kind of weaved your way into this project?
Yeah, no, I was pretty aligned to it. I obviously wasn't around during the earlier days. So, I came in when the podcast started, and then it did quickly evolve into being a show where we interviewed guests and people in the cigar industry. And so it was, before I kind of formally joined the team, I was just sort of helping out on the back end. And it was always, how can we do this better? How can we make this better? And that's just kind of how it evolved from there.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back a little bit with your story too, Nicole. Now, if I'm not mistaken, like your first cigar experience was with Matt, actually, correct? Or did you had previous experience to this?
No, my first cigar ever was with Matt.
And so when when he got you kind of involved in this world and everything, like how, like, I mean, looking back in the last 365 plus days, I mean, is it bizarre to you to kind of like look back at the Nicole who didn't know what cigars were and weren't really involved with it, to now the place that you actually hold in this industry? It's got to be unique, a unique whirlwind of experience, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't something that happened overnight either. So it was, it became something that we did as a joint hobby, as well. We hung out a lot. COVID, we couldn't go on dates. So like until 7 months, I think, into our relationship, we didn't go on a real date, like to a restaurant or anything. So what do? Well, you sit outside and you smoke cigars and have drinks and enjoy the weather, right? So, but in the beginning, I had started smoking. I smoked with Matthew. I started helping out on the show. And it wasn't until later on, I want to say at least like 6 months after the conception of the show, like it was way further down the line, that I actually decided to take more of a face role and started Smokin Nicole as my own, like kind of brand identity as part of Smokin Tabacco. I didn't just do it in the beginning. I just kind of got more and more involved in assisting Matthew, and then it just kind of grew into that.
This is going to be the most awkward question I've ever asked on this show. You guys ready for this?
Do it.
I think I've called you Matt since the moment I've met you.
I know where you're going with this, and I don't care.
I was like, I've been calling you the wrong name this whole fucking time, because
whichever one you want.
Yeah, he goes by Matt or Matthew, but I
Okay.
call him Matthew.
So another funny story about this. So you want to, I'm going to totally admit to being a complete shit here real quick. So hold on for this one. So I meet up. This is mid COVID too, right? So John Carney comes into town. It's the first time he's traveled in forever. John and I go way back, like the two of you do. I consider him a great friend, not just an acquaintance in this industry, but a great friend. He's done a lot for me, and he's a fantastic human being. But so we meet up for some cigars. I bring some wine. We hang out in a you know little court area outside of his hotel when he comes to town. And he's telling me, he's like, hey, have you seen the show that I'm involved with? And I was like, yeah, Hacking Gourmet, dude, it's freaking awesome. It's fantastic. He's like, no, this other one. He's like, I'm doing it with Matt Tabacco. And I was like, yeah, I've seen little snippets of it. I was like, I haven't really gotten into it that much. I was like, can I just like talk about the obvious thing? I said, why is his branding misspelled? And it's like, what are you talking about? I was like, tobacco. He spells tobacco wrong. He's like, dude, that's his name. I was like, no, I get it. Yeah. It's like, he's Matt Tabacco. It's like this identity thing, like this like alter ego kind of thing. He's like, no, that's really his name. And that's how he spells it. And so I'm like, oh, well, I'm an asshole. So that's cool.
You are an asshole, but it's okay.
So yeah, totally misread that entire branding thing. But that's, I really like it because it was really, it obviously is really subtle. And I don't like, I don't think anyone can really pick up on it necessarily unless you're really, really paying attention. But it's at the same time, it's all you. It's 100% you at the same time, which is really cool. Cause it's a very common expression, but it encapsulates you. So I think, my own mistake, aside, I think it's absolutely brilliant to kind of go back on it here too. So when Nicole, when you wanted to build your kind of own identity within this brand, I know that a lot of the design work, apart from the logo that's on Matt's hat there and everything, but a lot of the marketing pieces and everything, you were really heavily involved with that. Like, what do you have previous experience in that kind of thing, or is it just something, again, another hobby that you picked up? Like, where did those inspirations come from?
I took graphic design classes in college, nothing crazy. And then I'm a manager of a spa, that's my regular day job. So I do have to do my own marketing material a lot of the time, and just put things out in the world. And, my dad, he has a print shop as well. So, he does graphic design and things like that. So it's, I know my way around it, and it's pretty easy for me to pick up on.
So when you were kind of like, I'm really interested in some of the, like, the marketing pieces. Like, I love the shirts that you guys made. It's one of those trendy pieces. And everything. Everyone seems to have one. They have the name and the name of whatever particular branding it is and everything. But you guys really, really dug deep with it in a way that the rest of the cigar industry really hadn't. Which was, you guys went after the actual tobaccos and like vitolas, like you did wrappers,
Yeah.
and that was really cool. Like, what inspired you there?
Well, part of it too is, when we were kind of doing merchandise, not that it's a huge thing, but everyone has merchandise out there, right? And then we did do a bigger push with it for our 1-year anniversary, as a way people could donate, right? So we did that as well. But we wanted to put things out there that people wanted to wear. A shirt with our name on it is great, and that's a walking advertisement, but there's not a lot of cigar shirts and things in the world. So, what can we make that people want to wear that isn't necessarily just us putting our brand logo on it?
Now, Matt, you actually were telling me about an experience that you had. Was it you, or was it a friend who was walking in a grocery store and they were a complete stranger was wearing your hat?
That was
Well, there's a couple different stories.
There's a few instances of it, being discovered.
Yeah. But that happened at the grocery store. One happened to us.
And it was
Yeah.
somebody I know.
And it was someone that we knew, but we were like, oh my God, like that's our hat. And we're
from
like
a distance,
far away from home.
it was like, and then at the time everyone was still wearing masks in grocery stores or whatever. I think they are again, but whatever. But from a distance, or someone with a mask on with a hat, I'm like, oh, who the hell's wearing that hat? I don't even know who that is. And then when I got closer, I realized it was someone I know pretty well.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
that was I don't think that's the story that I told you. The one where we got all excited was said friend who came up with the idea lives in Avon Park, Florida. And he was at a party a few months ago. And he spotted the hat and he was like, I know exactly what that is. And he went up to this person and asked them about it. Didn't know who they were. And guy was like, yeah, I won this in a dominoes game down in Miami.
So random.
It was very random, but it was like, being seen out in the wild down there
back in the old West. Yeah, I won this knife off of a guy in Dodge City.
And he sent it to me and he was like, this dude's rocking this hat. I'm like, did you just like, is that a like a Smokin Tabacco hat out in the wild? And he was like, yeah, like I don't know this guy at all, but he has your hat on. And I'm like, I don't know who he is either. He's like, yeah, he said he won it in a dominoes game down in Miami. I'm like, interesting. That's very interesting. But yeah, I think that's the story that I probably told you.
Yeah, that's it. That's the refresher. So I mean that has to, is it and I asked you guys this before when we were in Vegas, so I'll share this question with my audience here. Is it surreal yet? Like, does it when you see something like that, like you're branding in the wilds or being, talking to these people that you've only met virtually and having this connection, is it as surreal for you? Because it really was for me. So that's where I'm kind of going with this, in a lot of ways.
I think yeah, it definitely is. I think it's it's like anything though. It's like the more you see it though, the more comfortable with it you get. But for sure, I mean, it's kind of exciting, now we go to events and stuff and I see people wearing my hats and my shirts and whatever. And maybe they don't know exactly who we are, but they like, oh, I know it's cigar related, or like, oh no, we know who you are. Like, Nelson, who's part of the Smokin Tabacco team, Nelson DeMello, he was just a huge fan. And we went to an event, we met him and he was wearing one of the hats and he was like, oh my God. And he wanted a picture with us and all this. And he was following us online. He watched like every episode. He like followed everything we did. And got to know him a little bit. And when he left Stogie Geeks, he became part of the Smokin Tabacco family. So that's another, crazy story too. Just kind of how that all came full circle. He went from being like one of our biggest fans to now he's part of the team. So yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's definitely like, oh wow, like, we're doing something here. You know what I mean? It's, oh, like this isn't just two people in a basement anymore. Not that actually it ever was. But
it's just more like, oh, hey, we're reaching people.
Yeah. We're actually we're doing something.
People pay attention. I mean, we do it either way, regardless whether or not people watch us. I mean, we just put out content and hope for the best. So but yeah, it's great.
That kind of goes into my next question. Like, so, we talked about like what your vision was in the very beginning. So, I mean, and again, and like, please don't like feel a lot of pressure with this question. I'm not, it's not like I'm going to hold you to the standard a year from now or 2 years. Like, hey, you said you were going to be doing this and now you're doing that. Like, but what intentions do you have, or what goals do you have as you want to build a brand? So like, again, this is year 3 for the brands, year 2 for the podcast. Like, what are some of the goals and intentions that you want to have accomplished by the time that you hit year 3?
Ooh, can I answer?
Go ahead.
So continuing with kind of Cigar Media news, definitely, the press releases, things of that nature, continuing with the show, and just interviewing wonderful people in the Cigar Media and bringing that to people's attention and getting to know people. And I think the one other thing that we would like to expand on is traveling and just bringing video content from farms. That's kind of a big one. When we're
Oh,
able to
nice.
travel again.
Farm and factory.
Farm and factory. Our long-term goal is to be able to travel to a lot of these beautiful factories and bring some high def content to people. Maybe not live, depends on the situation. I know some places have good Wi-Fi, some places do not.
Yes.
But bringing kind of that aspect back, and kind of showing people what goes on there. We feel like there could be more of that, just out in the world. So
Well, that kind of goes. I mean, you guys have built some fantastic and sensational relationships already in your in the beginning parts of, I mean, the beginning of your branding. I mean, look behind you. You've got the JC Newman studio there. I know you guys did an amazing trip down to Tampa that was designed as a vacation, but you turned it into almost this working trip that I really enjoyed watching you kind of go and visit all these different places and talk to all these different people that you had either had the chance to interview or maybe even hadn't. But it was, from where I sat, it was a beautiful thing to see you to be able to connect with, people from not across from a screen. And I really found a lot of joy in that personally. And I think that, and I don't think I'm alone in that. I think that you had that kind of impact on your audience. What was kind of the reaction with that trip specifically? Because it was a very intimate trip that turned into a very, a great sharing experience with your audience. So how did you guys reconcile with the impact of that?
Well, that was a very interesting trip. I mean, it was the first official Smokin Tobacco trip, given the pandemic circumstance. So, it was very rewarding, for us and the brand itself and whatnot. Um, we covered Miami, Orlando, Tampa. We stopped in Delray Beach, Boynton Beach. Our friends at Smoke Inn, Honest Abe. We went everywhere, and it was great. It was great to finally just be with people in person, see them, talk to them, bring those relationships to the next level. Went to Tampa. We met up with Angela Yu, Cynthia Fuente. That's where we presented Cynthia with the check for the CFCF Foundation. Going to JC Newman, going through the El Reloj factory for the first time. That's where we met Adria. Shout out to Adria, she's the best. It was surreal for us. It was cool, but it was a learning experience too. We met with a lot of people, like you said, that we knew through a computer screen. I knew them really well, and it felt awkward. Not awkward, but it was just strange to see these people in person for the first time, because it felt like I had already known them for like 10 years.
Right.
And it's just kind of like, oh, cool. And I think also the biggest blanket over that whole trip was, regardless of where we were and what we were doing, we were just out, So
yeah, we were just itching to
we were
like
just happy we were out. It didn't matter where
get
we
out.
were, but it was also awesome that us getting out was doing that. So so much happened on that trip, and then a short time later we went on the second trip, PCA, where obviously we were together, the trade show with everybody, and that was cool too. And that was a much different experience. We were definitely working a lot more on that trip, and then there was the engagement, which is its own other thing. So yeah, I mean, the first two trips for Smokin Tobacco, I would say I would sum up being very involved, very successful, very busy, and very exhausting too, but in a good way, because we got a lot done.
So with your trip down to Florida, was there anyone that you hadn't had a previous relationship with? I guess you just mentioned Adria from JC Newman, but was there anyone that you hadn't met through the show or through the brands that you got an opportunity to meet and build a relationship with, that you were really excited about or really pleased with?
Go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like everyone we had met on our trip, for the most part, we had a connection with them
Yeah.
online at some point. So
And they all knew we were coming, and we told them
yeah,
and all that. So it was all planned out.
the only people I would say would be Adria and Drew Newman. We hadn't had any contact with them really
Mhm.
before that trip. But other than them, I mean, we're in New England and we're close to two very large cigar shops. So Two Guys Cigars and Twins. And so a lot of, we had met with Nick Perdomo, but he had been up here for an event in June. So, a lot of people, they visit here anyway. I feel like just based on the area we're in.
Hmm.
So we had seen them down there, but they come up to New England anyway. So, right. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously this is a big cigar area,
Yeah.
so a lot of those people are always coming up here for big events and big stuff. So I'd run into some people before.
Yeah, like Terrence Riley you've met before.
Yeah, so I mean, but it was a different experience to go down to their neck of the woods and see them and be in their natural habitat too. I mean, that was a whole nother experience. That was, it was awesome.
Well, that's terrific. I'm getting some feedback here in the chat that our volume may be a little low, so I just want to do a quick sound check. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. So just want to
Can you hear me good? Can you hear me good?
Yeah, I mean, I can hear
Yeah,
you just
same.
fine. So I don't know if anyone else is
It's not
having
me,
a-
someone's saying it's you.
Let me.
But I think you're just talking low tonight.
Is this
Testing.
is this set up right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the is it the coffee? Was there something not? Was there not caffeine in this coffee?
No, it's just late. I think Matt's talking low tonight.
I can turn up my gain. I mean,
Oh,
get a
it's
little
all.
bit better.
I mean,
There
like I
we
said,
go.
I can hear you just fine. So
So make sure the
Um,
audience can hear it. I don't want to get too loud though.
Yeah.
Let's
we
tweak
don't
that
want to
back a
be
little bit.
too obnoxious on a Sunday evening, even though
I
it's
don't.
Labor Day tomorrow. But
I don't want to blow your ears out with my sound.
no, I'm totally fine. Well, thank you again. Appreciate all the feedback from everybody there. So hopefully you guys can hear us a little bit better. We'll try to speak just a little bit louder and everything. But going into these to these trips and everything. So again, their brand is 2 years old. Podcast is a year old. Covering interviewing it for you're about a year into it. So going into your first trade show, I mean, knowing that it was going to be a lot smaller of a format than in previous years where there had been a trade show, did you see this as an opportunity to really plant your flag and be able to do a wide array of coverage because of the lower turnout, or did you have other concerns? Like what was kind of the strategy going into PCA as far as what you wanted to accomplish as a brand, and did you accomplish it?
Well, I would say regardless of the size and all the circumstances surrounding this show specifically, planting the flag was on the radar no matter what. And I feel like we did that. We did a really good job at that.
And we did go in with a plan of action.
We did.
So, we had talked about what kind of content we wanted to create around the show. And we had come up with, oh, hey, we want to do 5-minute or less video clips of every manufacturer, anyone who's showcasing there. For cigar, not like we were like, okay, it might be too much if we're doing accessories, things like that, but anyone who's showcasing cigars there. And we didn't get to everyone, but we tried. We tried our best. Obviously things come up and we didn't know exactly like 100% what to expect, but we figured we'd go in, do as much as we could, and be as quick as possible. So one, we didn't eat up people's time. Two, we wanted to be able to upload things really fast. So by keeping our video short, like that was the goal. The shorter the video, the better.
Right.
So let's just get to the point. What are you showcasing here today? So that we can bring that back to our viewers, and just kind of, anything that's more involved, interview, we can do that on the show. That's not, it's not the time to do that on the PCA floor. So
the Cigar Coop team,
Yeah.
by the way, I don't know if you know them, but they did a really good job doing some
Yeah, I've heard the name.
some coverage. There was this one, guy, bigger beard, doing a lot of video interviews, and by the end of the show, I told him he had no voice left. He really left it all out on the floor. I mean, guy's a hero. He is.
Well, thank
If you ever,
thank you.
if you ever get a chance to meet him, you should. I think he's a sweet
Yeah,
man.
I'll give him a one on the shoulder for you. So no, but I appreciate that. For my audience, he's talking about me. But no, it was a great. I think it was a great opportunity, and I think we accomplished our goals as part of the Cigar Coop coalition, as I kind of coined it. But it was definitely an interesting. It was an interesting experience from my previous two experiences of the trade show. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I thought everyone was in a great mood. Everyone was happy to be there, which was, fantastic. Was there anyone that you went into, any interviews that you did that, man, I'm curious about this because I, Coop calls it the, having a bear moment because, sometimes, like I said, it still feels kind of surreal to me to talk to some of these people where I've been smoking their products for years, and things like that. But I mean, was there ever a moment for either of you that was just like, wow, I'm talking to so and so, or this is crazy,
Oh,
or
absolutely. I mean, there's times, yeah, you run into someone that maybe you even talk to online, or maybe someone that came on the show, but like being with them in person is a much different experience too. And it goes to the point now, like when I run into people for the first time in person, it's not like oh, hey, like it's so cool to meet you, and they like talk to you like a fan. It's like, no, they talk to you like, kind of like on the same level, like, oh yeah, like you're doing this and this. Oh yeah, like I love the show, or like, oh, blah blah blah. And it's just like you're not doing the whole like, oh man, I'm a fan. It's like you're actually talking about like industry stuff, and it's like you're like on their level, if that makes sense, if you know where I'm getting at.
sure.
Like
Oh, of course.
like I remember like the first night we were at PCA, like Pete Johnson had been on the show. I talked to Pete, and I messaged back and forth with him all the time for information for stuff on the website that comes out. But like I was there, and like he saw me, he was like, "Hey man," and I was like, "Hey," and like we were just like shooting the shit, and I'm like, just like hanging out with Pete Johnson. That was cool. Um,
I think my favorite comment is a lot of these people were like, "Oh man, you're taller in person to Matt."
hmm,
Like,
yeah, I don't know
did you think he
why.
was short? I don't know.
I mean, I'm not Terrence Riley tall, but I mean, I'm taller than most, like 6'1".
I feel
So
like that was just a common comment.
yeah,
Yeah. Terrence was a lot taller than I ever thought he was when I first met him in person. And then, of course, I'd heard how big Omar DeFrias was before I met
oh,
him for the first
he's
time.
big, yeah.
But he's still like every time I'm still dwarfed by him, and I'm not a small human being by any stretch, but he still makes me feel very diminutive in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
he's such a great personality though. And I think that's what's interesting about this industry as a whole is that there's a lot of really fun personalities. And I've really enjoyed, that's what I really enjoy about the show. I was asking you about your goals and your intentions about what you wanted to do with your brand, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's a very simple goal for me. Someone was asking me the other day who didn't know, my wife introduced me to them, and they're like, well, what do you do on your podcast? And I'm like, well, and they're like, do you do interviews? I was like, I don't know if I do interviews as much as I do conversations. That's the way I kind of view it, is that I view that this is just a conversation between, in this case, three people. Um, and I ask questions that I feel I'm interested in, and I try to ask questions that, you know, are the questions that kind of have been left unanswered because they've told their, these folks have told and they're truly fabulous stories, right?
Right.
That's the great thing about this. And there's so many amazing stories, and I think it's just fun to kind of explore those with people just a little bit more. So were there any like were there any challenging guests that you guys have had on your show in the last year where you were just like, where this, you know not poor, not bad, I'm not looking for any dirt here, but just
Not bad, but
it was a
difficult.
challenging experience.
I won't name any names, but yeah, I mean, there's always, and as in this line of work, um, and like you said, not bad, but there's people that come along that are just they're harder to interview. You really got to be a little bit more prepared for them. You know, like you'll have people like, you know, you'll have people like Matt Booth who, like, you don't need anything. You just have to show up in the conversation. He'll tell you what to say. And then you got people who kind of come on and, like, you really got to, like, know their stuff, and you got to have your questions ready, and you have to just be on your game and listen to everything they say, because they don't say much, or they don't really flow conversation. You're gonna have to kind of keep that. You have to keep that fire burning by yourself. Um, and yeah, I mean, that happens, and that's not a knock on those people too. Some people, and everyone has a different personality, you know. Um, and some people are, you know, more uncomfortable being on the shows and on camera and whatever. People who do it all the time, they still don't like it, and I respect that, because it's not for everyone. And I think it, you know, it's part of their job, but at the same time, they don't like it. They've always been, like, camera shy, so when they come on, and they're a little bit more like,
I feel like at the trade show that was more of an issue. There were a lot of people who didn't want to do the little videos with us. More so, I think, because they were in person, not sitting at home behind their
yeah, like
webcam.
even Pete Johnson has said, he's like, yeah, like, I don't like doing the video interviews. Like, I'm gonna do it for you. Um, but
We
like I like, and like a couple people, but like most people, like, I don't want to do them for.
we were like, it's gonna be so quick. Just
I was
just
like,
give us your
Pete,
time.
it's gonna be like 5 minutes, like, tops. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I'll do it for you. But like, he's like, yeah. And Kurt Kendall, like, is another one. He's very camera shy, but he was like, yeah, like, I'll jump on. But like, I know he's very camera shy, and he gets kind of quiet. Um, but you know, I mean, but the interviews still go well. You know, I mean, you just, you
Hmm.
know, and they're still good people, and they have good things to say, and it's great. But I would say it's, like you said, it's a conversation. And that's kind of in the concept of the Smoking Tobacco Show. It's more of a conversation. It's more of that lounge conversation experience versus like a hardcore interview. I mean, I'm not doing Howard Stern interviews over here, which, you know, is great, and Howard's, you know, one of the best to do it, and he's a huge influence to me. But you know, that's a different kind of conversation than like what we're doing. It's a little bit more laid back. It's not so in your face with these really deep questions. And sometimes, yeah, there's people you have to just really keep that flame going for, and some people, you know, they'll go back and forth, and it kind of just gets carried away. Some people don't. Um and 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 that's just part of it, you know.
Hmm. No, I totally agree. I think one of the biggest challenges with challenging interviews, especially, you mentioned someone like Kurt Kendall, who I've had on my show, and absolutely like one of my favorite interviews. And you're right, like, he's not particularly fond of necessarily doing this. I mean, he doesn't hate it, and he's not a jerk about it. He's one of the nicest guys in the world, actually.
Oh, he is.
Uh,
Kurt's an awesome guy. He's a quiet guy, and there's nothing
yeah,
wrong with it. He's a very quiet guy. That's
and
all.
we had such a great time because we were talking about, and that was the thing. I think that is, if you're genuinely, it's not even about preparation. Prep work is very important, as I've always found. But it's also about being genuinely interested in what you're asking and what you're talking about. And I think that's why
Mm,
I enjoyed this so much, is I really enjoy talking to people. I really enjoy talking to people in general. I love hearing about different points of view. I love hearing about different perspectives. I love a good debate. I love a good discussion. Um,
mm.
and I'm genuinely interested in the answer when I ask a question. We were talking about the 15 way, BuzzFeed article from the very beginning, the 15 ways you know that you're a good person or not. I I think it's just it's one of those things that, even with like challenging people, or or even challenging subjects that come up in the middle of an interview, right? It's all how you do it. Like Coop rags on me all the time because he thinks that Matt Booth's taking it easy on me in interviews, and I don't think I think Matt's challenging in a certain sense, but at the same time, I don't think he is either. I think it's just going with the flow, which is what he does. Like, that's his personality, is just.
And part of him too is, there's two people. There's Matt Booth, who owns Room 101 Cigars, who you see on the show, and then there's Matthew Booth, who's an individual, who cares a lot about people, and he's a very good person.
Mhm.
And you know, he has his act, and that's his persona, and that's what he does. And yeah, you got to be able to deal with that. But and that's the other side to there's two sides to these people too. You know, when you talk about, you know, pick a name. You know, the people you flip through the magazine, Rocky Patel, Pete Johnson, Calito Fuente, who doesn't know who he is, George Padron, you know, big names, you know, they all kind of have like a character, you know what I mean? Because they have to be exposed to the world. You know, when you have them on your show, they have that's their character that they're playing, you know, and they're giving you information, you're talking to them and all that, but that's like, you know, it's a different person than the person who like behind closed doors one-on-one and like there's not an audience. It's a different kind of conversation. I would say that my biggest strategy has always been to try to get through the character to the core person very subtly, without really completely exposing them, if that makes sense, to get that real connection feeling, not only for me, but for the audience too. Because I know there's a lot of people who don't have the opportunity to talk to these people like we do, and who want to hear the answers to some of these questions. Like you said, being genuinely interested in asking these questions and wanting to hear the answers. You know, we're doing that and we get to talk to these people, but there's a lot of people who watch and listen to the show who don't get to have that connection with these people, but they want to
Mhm.
know, they want to feel that. And you have to, a part of your job is to deliver that connection to the audience. And I would say that's probably the biggest thing in terms of interviewing for me, that I try to strive for when I do the show.
Yeah, I mean, I had the opportunity and the privilege of being a guest on your show, just a few weeks ago, and I'm not sure how entertaining I really was, but it got deep, like
It
a
did.
few times, and I don't even know if it was like I was really being intentional about it. It's just some of your questions were really, I don't know if they were meant to be probing, but they were, and
That's where
I took it away that I took it that way. So
that's where, like I mentioned before, you know, like Howard Stern. I've been part of the Stern Army, joined the Revolution, for a long time, and before I even before the thought of being on a podcast or anything came to mind, I'd always been a fan of Howard's, and I always was like, oh, that would be awesome to, like, you know, be on the radio, have talk show, have people listen, have an audience. It was always like something like I always loved the idea of, but I just, you know, I was like, oh, it'll never happen. Like, I'm never gonna be on the radio or like whatever. I never thought. But when this all started, that was kind of what became my influence, you know. And then, you know, you're interviewing people, and it's like anyone who knows Howard Stern, you know, aside from the antics, let's put all the crazy stuff he does aside. When you listen, like when you listen to his interviews, when he has people on, like when he's being serious, it's some of the best fucking content you'll ever see. I mean, the questions he asks people, it's not just like the wild stuff, like, oh, you know, like, so how many times a week do you have sex with your wife? But like he'll get into like really deep stuff and then move on to something like the way he romances his questions, is interesting. And he obviously he's very good at it, you know, been around a long time. But I try to have that, like, I don't want to ask like the, so tell me about this cigar. I try to also go off that path and get a little bit more personal, which I think is important. And I don't think a lot of people do that.
And we also let the conversation go where it wants to go.
That's
So
true too.
we always tell people we don't do show notes.
We don't.
Which people are like, what, you're crazy. I mean, we educate ourselves a little bit of who's coming on the show. We know, you know, we know a lot, but
We're prepared,
yeah, we're prepared, but we don't
but there's not a
have
script.
an outline, a script. That what you see is just organic of, oh, hey, this is where we started, and then this is where it ends up for
Right.
the most part.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, it's letting the conversation kind of go its own path, but also like planting the seeds for it to grow that way. You know, it's you can set yourself up to let the conversation carry on by having a good foundation. And I think that's the biggest thing I would say is for me.
Well, I'm really excited about where the Smokin Tabacco brand is going to go, and how it continues to build on the tremendous foundation that you all have built. I think I think as we see your relationship grow together, since you all will be getting married shortly, um, and how the brand continues to grow in that way, it's gonna. I for one am genuinely interested to see how you guys will grow together. Um, you know, and how that growth together will grow the brand. And I'm really excited to see the way that these interviews and the way these shows will continue to develop, because I'm predicting that Smokin Tabacco is going to look considerably different in 2 years from where it stands today, in a good way. I'm not going to like unveil my predictions like I have like a definitive, like
Like
you know,
your psychic.
oracle, yeah, like psychic or an oracle speaking here, like, oh, this is what it's going to be about. But my prediction is very general in the sense that I think it's going to be completely different than the way that it is today, and I think it's going to be a good thing, in a lot of ways. Not that it's not good now, at all. I enjoy the show. I enjoy what you guys put out. Big fans. Like I said, I'm a big fan of your story, and I think you guys are this is only the beginning in a very good way.
Oh
So,
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's we've been fortunate enough to be successful. I mean, nothing's ever guaranteed, right? Um, you know, you have to earn it. You got to work for it. You have to make it happen. And you know, I would say that we've been lucky too. You know, luck is a part of it. You know, but we work hard to be successful with it, and it's just we keep putting into it, and making it grow. And as long as we continue to do that, then absolutely. I mean, there's no stopping. You know how far it can go. So it's just that same adage of, you know, one day at a time. That's really all it is, and that's what it's been. You know, and I'll be honest with you, there's days when you've had enough, or you just you don't want to deal with it, or you don't want to do it, but you have to just keep telling yourself, like, you know, the show must go on. You have to keep going. You can't quit now, and you suck it up and you keep going, and then you have another win, and then you're like, oh yeah, and then it reminds you of why you're here in the first place.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's something we do in our spare time,
yeah,
and
all
I'm
three of us
sure,
do.
as
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Hmm.
So, it cuts into family time, it cuts into just personal time, it cuts into your own downtime, it cuts into other stuff, right? So there's times when it's tough, but we've just, made a commitment to keep on going, and here we are. So,
You know, like a lot of people, like, I have to like actually explain it to, because people are like, oh, like they don't understand, like, when I tell them how busy I am, and like, how are you so busy? Like, you have to understand, my day starts at 5:30, and I work all day at my regular job, and then I come home, and then I work on my online cigar media business, and I'm doing that, and no matter what it is, I'm doing something to continue to grow. And you know, so that it's like a second job almost, you know, to keep up with it. So
Hence why you're
um
drinking a coffee cocktail at midnight. So
hey,
yeah,
you know what? We have Labor Day off tomorrow, so we're enjoying our extra
I'm
day.
taking full advantage of it,
Yeah.
because it's a very rarity. I mean, people are like, you know, they don't understand, like, when you have something like this, you know, it's, you don't have a lot of regular downtime to like do
No.
nothing and be lazy, which I've grown to like less and less anyway, because it slows you down, and it takes away your motivation. You just got to keep going. um you know, that's kind of what keeps me going, is I just don't stop. You know, just keep going. When you lose the momentum, it's harder to get it back going again, so just keep the wheel moving.
well, I think this
Um,
segues perfect. Oh, go ahead, Nicole.
oh, no, no, no. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, I think this segues into my next question. So that I'm always interested in talking to other media guys and gals about this particular question in general, because I think it differs for all of us. I think we all know the answer that Coop gives. It's press releases. So what's the biggest pet peeve? Give me three really quick. I'm putting you all both on the spot, and you all have different answers. So your three biggest pet peeves with the cigar industry, and go. So
Ooh.
Just in terms of press releases, like,
no, 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 no. That's
No,
that's
just
that's
in
Coop's.
general.
That's Coop's pet peeve is press releases not
oh
being.
yeah,
So,
the
but
Coop
what's
has a laundry list of things. It's really funny. um oh, three things.
three on the spot? Go.
Wow, I hate being put on the spot.
I'm sorry.
I do this to people
Cigars
every.
on Instagram is one of mine.
Cigar house cigars on
Yeah,
Instagram.
And
in
Okay.
what way?
in what way? Because people normalize well, I guess it's a lot of different people, but people who buy followers. Like there's a whole thing where people buy their followers on Instagram and then they normalize these people's accounts by giving them more, by following them when they have fake followers or giving them free cigars when they buy their followers and things like that. That's a whole, and that's not just, exclusive to the cigar industry. That's to a lot of industries in general, is that there are people on Instagram and Instagram doesn't do a good job of filtering out the people who pay for their followers. So you see tons of people, whether it be in cigar or alcohol or other things, that, oh, that person, they're doing a review, they're getting this product for free, cool, whatever. They're being given stuff for free based on the fact that they're hitting, it's going to a lot of people when like 30,000 of their followers are fake. That bothers me, but
okay.
Very interesting
in general.
point.
So cigars and Instagram. What two more, Nicole?
Yeah.
While Matt's stalling here.
Yeah, I am stalling. You know what it is? I'm thinking too hard about it because there's always Coop will be like, he has hundreds of things that he doesn't like because like we talk about it all the time, but then none of them come to mind. Oh, I got a good one because this is a fun one. I was saving this for spare notes, but I'm gonna tease it here on ELOSOFUMAR. If anyone knows me and follows me on social media, you'll know that I've been getting pretty creative with my cigar related memes lately. Stop posting pictures of cohibas and asking if they're real. Seriously, like, really, like, listen, if you know, and if you don't know, it's probably not real. Like if your friend got it in Mexico, it's probably not real. Okay. Here's another spoiler for those who need to hear it. Anytime you get the box, the clear plastic and it says cohiba, they're not real. Habanos does not make that kind of packaging. That is not real. So let's just get that out in the open. And I know Bear will agree with me on that one.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, my thing about that question is, yeah, it's a little irritating, but I always just say, listen, did you smoke the cigar? Yes. Did you enjoy it? Yes. Then who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Really?
Hey, here's another fun fact. If you don't tell anybody, then, and if you're good at kind of covering it up, then maybe you get people to believe you. But who cares? Who cares? Just smoke the damn thing.
Yeah. Just smoke it. If you like it, great.
People who ignore cigar etiquette, like going to a lounge or cigar bar, whatever, and bringing their own cigar. That bothers me.
That reminds me. Oh, Carney's here. What's up, buddy? Love you. Amen on the Cuban thing. Thanks, John. This is why I love you. Yep, back. I'm gonna build off of what Nicole said. I just thought of this. It's a great one. Not necessarily. It doesn't have to be when you're in a shop, because it can happen anywhere, but it happens, I would say, more in shops for whatever reason. When, like, for me, like, I keep like the leather case with me, and it's got my cutters and my lighters in it. And I travel around with it, and I go to shops or I go wherever with it, and I keep some cigars and I keep all my tools in there. And when someone sees your cutter and they go, "Oh, can I use your cutter?" And you're like, "Yeah." And before they cut it, they're like this.
Like just slobber
like they're making out with their cigar, and they go, "Can I use your cutter?" And I'm like, "No." That's like grossness.
You can use the communal one over there.
You can use that one that everyone else used. You're not using mine. Sorry.
And then my last one is, people also don't understand that there are women who are in the cigar world who are definitely okay with being sexualized. That's their whole thing. You can just see them and know that that's what they do because they literally have lots of cleavage out, things like that. You can tell. But then sexualizing women who aren't actually doing that is kind of bothersome. Like if I take a picture and I'm wearing a turtleneck and then you're still sexualizing me in a turtleneck because I'm smoking a cigar is kind of annoying.
Interesting.
Just making a point.
I think some of these are hitting close to home for Nicole there, Bear.
There's hey, women, being a woman in the industry, it's a little bit different, but like,
I'm actually really pleased to these answers, not because, it's a good thing, but I've long been a proponent of more women in the industry and women's voices mattering on the same level that, frankly, that men's do. Like that's kind of been one of my things. And because I think that, we can't sit here and talk about how great the cigar community is, and we can't sit here and talk about how it's the great equalizer and completely ignore half the population. And
Yeah.
so I think you bring out about an absolutely stellar point in that. And you're absolutely right, Nicole. I mean, if there are women out there, and men for that matter, who enjoy being sexualized, and that's their goal, that's their intention, and more power to them. If that's what they want, okay. There's obviously a market
Yeah,
for that, and
but
an
you can
audience for that.
tell. But you can tell. Like
Sure.
my brand, or not even my brand, but I'm engaged right here to this guy. And I don't care about looking sexy with a cigar. And it's actually kind of sad, but I've taken a step back from even taking more selfies and things like that because I get comments that I'm not even looking for and not interested in. So I take photos of just my cigar and not my face, not because I don't want to, but because I'm then getting attention I don't even want
Or the
on my
creepy, or
face.
the creepy
Yeah.
people, the creepy people who like, use your photo as their wallpaper, and that's just
And there's a guy who did that, who took a picture of me and another cigar smoking female and made it his wallpaper on
it's
his
like,
computer.
and then proceeded
Um,
and then proceeded to brag to me about it, and I'm like, okay, what,
Wow,
like,
that's ballsy.
am I supposed
Stupid.
to be,
no, it's
it's like, am I supposed to be happy
it's
about that?
fine.
Yeah.
I people mean well, so it's fine. But anyway, I'm not even looking for it, and so I've had to actually kind of not brand my account, but be careful of what I post as a woman because I'm just not looking for that. I'm here for the cigars. I'm not here for any attention, and people think it's wanted when it's not wanted. So
And I think that's an unfortunate universal
yeah,
problem for women. And yeah, it's
yeah.
no different in the cigar industry again, which is sad. And my whole point about it being the great equalizer, right? So no, I think these are some fabulous points.
You need to
Uh,
be on Spare Notes and air your grievances. That's the place to do it.
Oh
We
yeah.
would love to have you. Coop would be like, oh, 100%. So
yeah,
yeah.
he knows the host really well, so he could probably get you on. Just saying.
Yeah. Coop knows a guy.
Okay. Quit stalling. Third one, Matt.
No, my third one, I'm gonna go with Coop on this one. It's it's a press releases thing too. Like when manufacturers like, well, we don't do press releases. You can just text me. It's like, okay. And then it's just if you don't do news and articles and stuff, like to you it might not seem like a big deal, but when you do it all the time, and then something comes out and you got to go out of your way to like go digging for the information and get it all, like it's like, do you know how many of these things I got to write? It's like, like you make it a project, and then it's like you're gonna have 40 people like reaching out to you asking for information. It's like, why do you do that to yourself? You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't do news as part of the ELOSOFUMAR brand, but I obviously I catch it, a lot of it with Coop, and I help him a little bit here and there. He does 99.9% of everything. That's what the guy's a machine. But I mean I'm with him on it just because I can see, like you just said, the amount of work that goes into it, and having to chase things when we've got full-time jobs and stuff like that. It's challenging. It's challenging for sure. So thank you guys for the 3 pet peeves, because that's going to spin us into tonight's fun segments, which is always led off by our one must go. So
Oh,
as always, it's brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabay and Byron lines. So smoke one today and start living united. So you guys gave me 3 pet peeves, each a piece. So we're going to do a little bit reverse psychology, a little reverse here. One's got to stay. One you got to live with. You
nice
got to be
twist.
okay with it.
Nice twist.
So yeah, so here we're actually gonna do 2. This was the first. We're gonna do 2 2 for the price of 1 for our good friends at United Cigars tonight. So but this is the first one. 3 pet peeves, but one's gotta stay. So Matt, press releases being poor, using someone else's cutter, and stop asking if cohibas are real. Which one are you gonna live with and be okay with for the rest of your life?
Well, I mean, I guess the one that's probably never going to go away and you'll never stop, and it doesn't really affect my day-to-day interactions with cigars physically, I would say it's the Cohiba thing. It is what it is. I don't want to share my cutter with someone who's a slobberer pre-cut. And dude, press releases got to get a little bit better. I mean, come on, let's go. It's 2021. Everyone can be a little bit better. And there's some big guys doing it too. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, if you have a cigar company, you need to be
Listen,
doing professional.
I don't like to
press
call anybody out.
releases.
I don't like to call anybody out. But like this, like, and I don't want to. I really don't want to.
Don't do it then.
I don't want because but there's a couple people who are like, I love their cigars. I love them as people. Like I've had great times with them. And I'm like, come on, like really? I mean, other than that, I love them. And like I don't wish anything, I have nothing but great things to say. But like a press release, you gotta step up your game. Come on. Let's go. So yeah, I'd keep the Cohiba thing.
All right. Well, Nicole, cigars on Instagram. So the fake followers, bringing your own cigars to a lounge without purchasing any, or sexualizing women in the industry who don't want to be sexualized. Which one you got to live with?
I mean, I'm gonna have to live with the one of people. I mean, people are always gonna bring their own cigars to lounges, even though I don't like it. They're not gonna listen to me because they're gonna do it anyway. So I'm gonna choose that one. I don't want it to happen, but it's gonna happen.
It's just so inconsiderate to a bit. I mean, you don't. I mean, unless it's BYOB, you don't bring your own wine to a restaurant. You don't bring, and that's a, you don't bring your own food to a restaurant. So we're all Boston fans here. So one of my biggest stories of why I have a laundry list of reasons why I hate A-Rod, but like there was this story once when he was dating, I think Cameron Diaz or something. He went to a restaurant, took his own food because he was on a special diet at the time. He brought him in little Tupperware, packages, and he proceeded to give them to the waiter and ask the waiter to heat them up.
Dude, that's high maintenance. I mean, come on.
Even if you're on a special diet, you could have.
That is some bullshit, man.
And you know what? And
why do you go to the restaurant then? What the fuck, man? Like, come on.
And to the female who's with him on a date, that's like a red flag to get out. I mean, do you really want to be with the? You wouldn't want to be the girlfriend of the guy.
Diaz anymore.
I have my own chicken and vegetables. If they're in a bag, can you just maybe run those out back, warm them up? That'd be great. Thanks. So you're not going to be purchasing any food from us tonight. Maybe I'll get a bottle of wine, but yeah, no. Okay, yeah, cool. I'd be like,
I mean, if it was a good bottle of wine,
unless he's dropping like
$1,000.
Yeah, I'd be like, get out of my restaurant. I don't work for you. Like, no, I'm not playing that game.
I mean, what kind of diet are you on that you can't go into and presumably I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but I know it was a nice one. That there isn't something on the menu that kind of fits within the confines of your diet, like, and you can ask for. I mean, look, I've ordered some pretty persnickety, special things, add-ons, sometimes, or at least I feel persnickety when I order them. But like if you don't want the extra fat, like don't say I don't want the butter on the pancakes, or I don't, I want, I want this, the steak dry, or whatever you need to kind of fit within your diet. I mean, good Lord, man. I mean, the guy's just a dick.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, it's like, look at like Tom Brady, right? I don't think there's any athlete out there who has a stricter diet than Tom Brady. But I know that if Tom Brady goes to a restaurant, I don't think he's bringing his own food. I think he just orders very carefully, and that's it. A-Rod, I mean,
you can order a piece of fish or a piece of chicken or a piece of steak with green vegetables and be done with it.
Yeah.
What are you eating? Where like, you have to bring it to the restaurant because they definitely don't have it. I mean, come on.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
All right. So you guys ready for the second one must go here?
Does this one actually have to go this time?
Yeah, this one actually has to go.
Okay. All right.
It's a little awkward, but we're gonna do this. So last time I was on your show, and we've had this conversation. I have children, and I know you guys are hoping to have children one day, and that's great. I think parenthood's fantastic. So here's the question, and I'm going to start with Nicole because Matt got to answer the first one now. So we're going to go with Nicole. So Nicole, we've got three amazing people sitting in this conversation: Nicole, Matthew, and Bear. Well, to name your child one of those names, one of them's got to go. which one's going. So do you risk hurting my feelings or, you know?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna hurt your feelings, just so you know. Yeah,
Too
that's
weird,
happening.
too non-traditional. Is that what?
Sorry.
I've never been a big fan of my own first name. I mean, it's my name, so I live with it, and like, you know, whatever. I don't hate
But
it.
if you had to, that's what I'm saying. Like,
So
he's
no
saying you
Matthew
have
Jr.
to.
in the future, like
No,
outside of the purview of this question.
No, I wouldn't do that. No.
We already.
We
won't say it, but we already know.
Yeah, well, no, we heard a name. Like, yeah, we're not sharing it.
Yeah, we're
We're
not
not
going
sharing
to share it, but
But like there
No
was
problem.
there was a name that like we had both heard, and we were like, oh, we love that, and it just kind of became this running thing for us. Like, oh, that's the name we're gonna use.
yeah,
Like if we had a boy,
Yeah.
we have a boy's name that we like definitely want.
Well, it's obviously not Bear. Nicole let that one out of the bag, so that's fine.
It's not
Yeah,
Bear and
it's
it's
not
not
Bear,
Matthew,
so-
but it's very Italian. I will say that.
Yeah.
It's very Italian.
Awesome.
So yeah, yeah. No,
So
no
which
Matthew.
one's got? You're not off the hook yet, man. So one's got to go. Who you kicking?
Mine.
Oh,
I'd say
you're
mine.
gonna kick your. Oh, okay. So you would name your kid
You would
Bear
name
before
your
Matthew.
kid Bear?
Before
Our kid Bear?
Hold on.
Before Matthew.
You didn't specify. Does it have to be first name or can it be any of the three names?
I think I'm leaving this open to interpretation, and apparently I'm already getting in trouble. So.
I mean, I might go Bear on the middle name because I want the kid to have some character. Be like, oh, your middle name's Bear. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. A little non-traditional. It's not going to happen
Like-
now. Nicole already kicked my name to the curb, but that's fine.
And I would let him tell the story like, yeah, it was because of the bear from the Revenant.
It wouldn't happen as a first name.
They wanted me to be like that, aggressive like a bear. Yeah, not my name. I don't know if I'd go with my name.
It's always like my favorite thing to do is troll like Facebook when people always like give bears a bad name, like, oh, you know, or like, oh, it's something shooting a bear. I'm like, why is the bear always the one that has to get shot? Like, like what is it about it? But no, I thought that would be a fun one just to kind of throw in there and everything. But I'm sure whatever name you guys have picked, again, I'm not going to probe you on it. I'm sure it's beautiful, and I will toast to your future nuptials and the future child. So
I'll tell you off
Thank
the
you.
air because like I can tell you. The whole world doesn't need to know that.
That's fine. Whatever. It's yours to share, and not mine to ask. So, well, that was our one must go to for the price of one tonight. As always, it's brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabay and Byron line. So smoke one today. Start living united. Now, this is our second fun topic and segment of the show, and this is something that I've been really excited about since we had started. So John Carney's in the chat. He was actually there at the inception of this concept. He was on my birthday episode late last year, and where I launched this initiative to where I was going to be asking my guests for a nonprofit or charity of their choosing that they wanted to spotlight, highlight, bring attention to, and possibly raise a little bit of good money for some great organizations out there. And this has been one of my absolute favorite things to talk about with folks. And you guys have already done tremendous work for this organization. You all selected the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation, founded by the incredible Fuente and Newman families. They've done some incredible work down in the Dominican Republic as far as schools and other aspects, giving back a tremendous lifestyle and basic needs and to the population of the country that they call home and that they work in and everything. And it's a wonderful organization filled with wonderful people, and they do incredible work. And you guys did an amazing work on their behalf this year. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of opportunity to talk about why the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation is so important to you, and tell us a little bit about, we've already hinted at it a couple times tonight, the incredible fundraiser that you guys put together as well.
Yeah, so the other thing about the Smokin Tobacco brand is, from the beginning, I always wanted to do that T110 was amazing though. The Cup Especial.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about it after this. Yeah,
I like don't even want it to end. I'm like almost there, and I'm like, oh, I wish it was a little more. I would say since day one, there was a side piece to the brand. And I've been on the show before, and I think I've already explained this, but I'll explain it again. Um, I always said, like, well, if this turns into something where I have a big enough platform, I can reach people, get people together, I want to do some sort of charity. So that way I can also give back to other people too. And I didn't have anything specific in mind, but not too long after, I came in to know, Cigar Family Charitable Foundation. I was always a big fan of, JC Newman and Arturo Fuente, and I smoked a lot of their stuff. Found out about the charity and looked into it, and I've had the privilege of getting to know members of the Fuente family, as well as getting into the Newman family here. So it was something that I just felt right. And when we had our 1 year anniversary of the show last year, I'm like, we're gonna do a big celebration for it. It's gonna be a big thing. I'm like, what if we use this opportunity to do a fundraiser as part of the celebration? So it's not just about us; it's about someone else as well. And that was where the idea came from. And I talked to everyone, and everyone was on board. And then we put this together, and I had reached out to Jose Blanco and Cynthia Fuente, and I said, hey, like, this is what we're gonna do. They were very excited about it. And then that's when I first became in contact with Adria, JC Newman. We were emailing back and forth, and people started putting things in for us to raffle off. And, it was a huge hit, and it was a learning experience. It was our first one. It started off a little slow, but then it really ended with a bang. I think we achieved more than we anticipated.
And it grew and grew. And I think also just because, a lot of different cigar companies, they also source their tobacco from the Dominican Republic, and it just helps so many people from there, children, adults. It helps with education. So it funds the school, but what a lot of people also don't know is it funds just clean drinking water.
Yeah,
It also funds,
Healthcare.
healthcare resources
healthcare,
for people.
food and water for kids who can't
Shoes.
afford it.
Like,
Yeah,
just,
shoes, clothes.
yeah.
It gives people a better opportunity for life, in so many different ways, who maybe they don't have much, they don't have too many opportunities. But what the Fuente and Newman families have done with this charity is really given them the opportunity to be anything and have anything they want, by just opening the door for them. And I think that that's really important. And especially with the cigar community, the Dominican Republic is a very important country. A lot of the tobaccos in this industry come from there. A lot of factories are there. There's people who live there, who work in those factories, and those people have kids at home. And it really keeps that. Not only does it keep everyone in the cigar industry, in the Dominican Republic, it keeps that all kind of flourishing and going around, but it's just in general, like it gives people a better opportunity.
And so what ended up happening is that we had a very large raffle, for cigars and things that people donated. And, we're just so thankful that so many, cigar brands decided to donate to us. The Caliph donated to us, LFD donated to us, Drew Estate,
Casa Cuevas,
Nova donated to us, just so many other people. And they knew that, okay, well, this is, even though they have their own brands and they do their own donations and things like
Yeah, I was
that.
gonna say they have their own
They knew-
charities and stuff.
that was
Yeah.
the best part of it too, is like it's a charity for two manufacturers to have their own charity, but other manufacturers are like, yeah, like it's bigger than that. It's not just about it to donate and be a part of someone else's, and just to show that support for one another. I think it also speaks volumes to the industry as a whole and how small it really is. And I remember having this conversation, with Cynthia Fuente, and she was saying, as much as like we all compete with each other and we all have products on the market, and we're trying to sell our cigars and they're trying to sell their cigars, at the same time we all stick together and help each other, because we have to, because of just the way this industry is. So to see people just come out for that and to show support was huge, and we're so thankful for that.
And, and so again, it turned into this big thing. We had over 50 prizes for our raffle giveaway. We also gave tickets for people who bought swag from our store. Any funds from people who purchased products from our online shop. All of the funds went to the charity. We set ourselves a goal, I think, of like $2,000, and we ended up coming in at $7,000. So,
Just incredible.
we blew, our totals away. And I think we're going to go for even more next year. There will be another charity raffle next year for our 2-year podcast anniversary. So
Yeah, and I think we're gonna, as I've told both families, since I want to shoot for at least 10,000
Yeah.
this year. So that's my goal for this year, is to do 10,000.
Oh, I think that's totally doable after, literally coming out of nowhere with it. I mean, just announcing it, and then it grew like this, like you said. I was very much an observer in all of this, right? I bought swag from your store as a part of a donation, but I also thought it was cool, like I was talking about before. So it was, I felt that was like a total win-win, situation. And but it was, I was talking to Liana Fuente about this. You mentioned Cynthia a moment ago, but I was talking to Liana about it when I said that, when you guys say Cigar Family Charitable Foundation, yeah, it's initially the concept was the two cigar families, Newmans and the Fuentes. But it, like you said before, and like I was telling her, it's morphed into so much more. Like you said, that these other organizations, manufacturers, everything, they have their own charitable interests, but yet they recognize the great work that the Fuentes and Newmans have done with this foundation. And for them to pitch in, with donations for the raffle and everything, it was such a beautiful moment for me, again, from the observation side, to see what you all built and what we all can do when we all come together. And we talk a lot about, especially in the last couple of years, especially with the trade show and the big four pulling out, and this fracturing of the industry. And right there in the first those couple of weeks that you all did something, you brought the industry together in a very unique and beautiful way. And the fact that you guys are going to do it again, I have no doubt it's going to be bigger. I have no doubt that you'll hit that 10 grand goal. You'll probably exceed it again. I plan on donating again to it. I'm not eligible for any raffle prizes, but that's okay, because it's for a great organization. And
why not? Everyone's eligible.
Yeah, everyone's eligible.
Everyone's eligible. That's the beautiful part. We had over 50 prizes last year.
I adhere to the cigar coop rules of raffles and stuff. I don't accept prizes at events anymore or anything like it. I think it's a healthy rule to follow. So, but I'm pleased to do it. I'm really excited. It was incredible. And I mean, well done. I know you guys are really proud of yourselves. You should be. And just, it was a beautiful moment. Beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. So thank you for doing that.
Well, we appreciate that, and we thank everyone who made it happen too.
Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to do it without the
certainly
support,
wasn't just us. We organized it, but everyone else made it happen. So
yep,
indeed. So in the chat tonight, everyone, I've posted, you can learn more about, if you guys are not aware about the great work that the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation does, you can check out their website for more information to learn more about what they do. And then if you want to consider donating, there's a link in the chat as well. I'll also put in the show notes later. It's also on an advertisement for this week's show. If you go back down in the ELOSOFUMAR feed, you'll actually see it. One of the great things about Facebook, there's, I always say this every week, so I apologize for boring my audience, but there is a lot of negativity around social media, and Facebook certainly catches a lot of flack, and well-deserved in some cases. But one of the things they've gotten right is the ability to donate money to good causes, because when you donate through Facebook, 100% of your donation goes towards that organization. So it's a wonderful thing that they've built inside the social media community here on Facebook, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So, well done, guys. When will you guys be announcing the second fundraiser? When will it start, you think, and when can we expect to start sending those donations your way for towards that 10 grand goal?
I think
Well,
we'll probably start a little earlier this year, give it more
next year.
time, or next year. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be after the new year. But I think we'll run it a little bit longer. Um, it might be a little, in terms of the way it's set up, might be a little bit different, but the objective will still be the same. So, like I said, it was last year was our first, this year was our first run. So, we learned a lot. So there's a lot of things we want to change to make it better. But I think that, with those changes and a slightly longer duration, I think it'll be a huge success again.
I would say February.
Yeah,
People will
maybe
start hearing about it by
maybe February,
February.
yeah. And it'll run through April 30th on the day, and then we'll probably do something similar where we pull numbers and announce prizes and the final total on the show and all that. So
Well, that's fantastic. We're all looking forward to that. So mark your calendars, everybody, because it's going to be sure to be some fantastic prizes. But more importantly, your money's going to an amazing cause. You're talking about the work that the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation does, and it's incredible to think in 2021 that we talk about first world problems, and we were kind of we were both kind of going back and forth about press releases and stuff, like, hey, it's 2021 and stuff. But in 2021, there's still part of this world that's very close to our world as the premium cigar industry, where there's people that don't have drinking water, they don't have shoes. I mean, these are things that we take for granted.
yeah,
And
Yep.
so when these organizations that we're close to really put their money where their mouth is and really kind of dig in, it's really fantastic, because they're ultimately making their community better.
Absolutely. And especially with the tobacco industry, right? They have to grow in third world countries essentially, to get the climate that they need for tobacco. So
yeah,
it's very important for them to be able to give back to the communities that they also take, right? So
Mhm.
and that's why the whole thing is just it's important. They have those people as workers, but their children, they're providing education to their children, education to themselves, basic necessities, things like that. So
yeah. I mean,
super
like,
important.
I know John's watching. He had some stuff in there too. On behalf of La Flor Dominicana. That's another major manufacturer down there in the Dominican. They have their own farm, they have their own factory. So again, like, it's another manufacturer who knows, like, the special culture behind, not only the Dominican as a society in its own country, but what the cigar industry means to that country. And I think the biggest thing was I was just really impressed with the other manufacturers, just without hesitation being like, yeah, I want to be involved. I thought it was huge. And we didn't even really ask anyone for anything either. It was like, oh, hey, like, we're
We
just
had a
doing.
handful of people, but then so many people just came out and they were like, here,
Yeah, I
here you
mean, like, we
go.
were telling people we were doing. They were like, oh, I'm gonna send you like 3 boxes of cigars. Like, I want to be involved. I'm like, oh, well, thank you. Like, that's totally oh, no, 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 no. I'm gonna send you some stuff. Okay, and then it just turned into, like, once, and it was one of those things where once a few people had some stuff, and like other people would be like, oh, so and so, oh, I gotta have stuff in there too. And it just was like everyone
Yeah.
wanted to be involved, and it was just so nice to just see people be like, oh, I got to be involved in that. I have to contribute.
And who doesn't love getting cigars? I mean, me and Matthew, we put up prizes from our own personal humidors too. And we did like a Nicole and a Matthew 5-pack where we gave away our top 5
Right.
cigars that we love to
Yeah.
smoke with a bottle of our favorite whiskey.
Yep.
That was like a prize. So, we were able to have fun with it for
Mhm.
sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think, but like, there were 50 prizes, so that's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned a couple of brands and manufacturers that call the Dominican home. Casa Cuevas,
Yep.
La Flor Dominicana. Obviously recognize. That's very. I mean, obviously hits close to home, right? Because that's where they operate. But like you mentioned, companies like McAuliffe, they're in Nicaragua,
Mm-hmm.
and they still felt the
Yeah.
need to be involved in it. And that's just, again, like I said, it was a shining moment for this industry, and y'all were at the center of it. And you, like you said, that you had a lot of help from a lot of people, but that's what made it incredible. That's what made it incredible. So
Yeah, absolutely.
So really excited to see what you guys continue to do for that amazing organization. And so, yeah, learn more, everybody. Like I said, I posted, it's in the show notes, but it's also posted in the chat here if you guys are watching live, and learn a little bit more about the incredible work that the Fuente and Newman families do. And please consider donating, because it's a great cause. And in no short order, like every week, y'all, I'll be making another donation to Cigar Family Charitable Foundation, but in y'all's honor and all the incredible work you do. So that'll be coming later tonight. Just a couple of last kind of questions to tie up tonight's show and everything. I really, we can't let this show go without, we talked a little bit about PCA. And there's two incredible stories that came out of PCA. We've kind of danced around to one of them, and we'll get to that one because that's obviously the big one that happened at PCA this year. But kind of going toward Vegas.
Oh, I know where we're going with this.
Y'all took it upon yourselves
Is he
to
watching?
participate in one of, I think, one of the funnest trends in this industry, which is the Cigar Coop Airport Selfie Challenge. And there's been some really good ones. Jack Heyer, Drew Estate, man, he really brings his A game with it. I love it. Terrence Riley, Terrence and I are we're kindred spirits, man. We're both literary fans, and he has this kind of very metaphorical approach and literary approach to his posts, which are just, I think they're sensational. Coop didn't get it in the beginning. I was like, you have to understand Terrence, the way Terrence's mind works, and so I was trying to explain it to him, and then as he kept doing it, as Terrence kept doing it, Coop got into it. He's like, these are really good, and I was like, yeah, they're really good. But then y'all take the game to a whole new level by bringing almost life-size photo of Mr. William Cooper into Logan Airport with you, and the photo that y'all took from the airport lobby or waiting area, match is absolutely classic. You're sitting there, so nonchalant, like you're sitting next to a buddy. And here's this life-size cutout or life-size photo of Coop, and it just,
It's her idea.
it's hilarious. Like talk. Where did it come from? Where the inspiration? Break this down, because it's hilarious.
It just, we were just thinking, I mean, we wanted to take part in it. And as I mentioned earlier, my dad's a printer. So he has a poster machine where he can print something up to like 10 feet. So I was like, we should do like a whole life-size cutout. But it worked out well. It was funny, great. We already have an idea in place for next year, which we will not disclose, but it will also bring the game to a whole nother level.
Yes, it will. Yes.
And it will be better than anything that's been out there. It's different from what everyone else has done, but it will encapsulate the rules of the Coop Photo Challenge as well.
Nice.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
That was fun to do. Oh man, that it got a lot of attention too, and it was just so, it was funny because after we got to Vegas and everyone had seen it, and it was like one of the first nights I was walking by the Circle Bar, and Terrence Riley was up behind the rail, and I was like down on like the casino floor itself, and I saw Terrence, and I shouted out to him, and he saw me, and I was like, hey, I just gave you a run for your money, and he was like, hey, he's like, but you do that show with Coop now, you're not eligible, just so you know. I was like, son of a bitch. And I said that to Coop, and he's like, technically that's true, but I don't know. I gotta find something. I have to acknowledge it some way because it was too good.
But technically, if I am the one in the photo and submitting the photo next year, maybe that'll be our way around it.
Yeah, that's true. You gotta be like, because you're not involved in span notes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So just all me.
It's true.
No, but the thing I really loved about it, so you have this life-size photo, you started carrying it around the show floor, and you proceeded to get collect some autographs, some signatures.
Oh yeah, a lot of people signed it too.
We forgot to sign it.
We forgot to sign it ourselves actually, because we got too wrapped up in like trying to get it covered, and then I was like, it was getting towards the end, and I'm like, I want to make sure Coop has it on him. so that he can like have it and pack it away. Because I know he ships stuff home. I'm like, I don't know when he's shipping stuff home. So I'm like, we got to give it to him now. It was like the last day of the trade show. And it was when you and Ben were with Pete Johnson. We were at the Tatuaje booth, and she starts filming on her phone. And I was like, Coop, I need to talk to you. She's like, oh, okay, yeah, what's up? I'm like, I have something to give you. And he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, are you excited? And he was like, yeah. And I had this, and I had it with me, and I pulled it out, and I was like, I have the cutout. And he's like, oh, cool. And I was like, but what you don't know? And I showed it to him, and it was like all signatures. He's like, oh my God, that's great. He was all excited.
And I think within a day, like his wife had it framed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, he had told me,
home.
he's like, oh yeah, he's like, my wife already like had it framed. It's like in my office. Like
We don't want to waste it. Like at first we were like, well, what do we do? Like
first
once we took the picture, we're like, what do we do with this?
I was like, I'm gonna bring it home and frame it and put it in my office, and it'll be my little story. But then I'm like, no, I'm like, he deserves to have it. But then I'm like, I got this idea. I'm like, well, what if I got like a bunch of industry people to like sign it? Just like to make it, because everyone knows about it. You know what I mean? And like everyone knows like what it means. So I'm like, yeah, like we'll get everyone in on it because everyone takes part in it. And so I got everyone I could on the show floor. But like, hey, by the way, and they're like, oh yeah, I got to do this. And they all knew what it was. As soon as I unrolled it, they're like, oh yeah, I saw that. And they got all excited. Oh yeah, I got to sign that. And everyone was all into it. And when I gave it to him, he was so excited. And it was just awesome. And I'm like, he
was very touched. Yeah, he was very touched.
Yeah.
Like it's a great gesture, I think.
It was just kind of like the signature part was never even part of the plan. I thought of it after. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. What if we do this? And it just made it so much better. No, it was a lot of fun. That was really cool. I had a lot of fun with that.
So before we get to the other story of PCA, this you were as you were telling the story, Matt, you're kind of doing a slight impression of Coop. So last time I had you on the show, you busted out your Matt Booth impression, which was just uncanny, absolutely uncanny. Like, is impression something you've always done, or is it just something like you picked up like with Matt because he's just such a character, and you're like,
no, it's something I've always done.
Okay,
I do a lot of people. It's one of those, I don't know how I do it. I don't know. It just kind of like I pick up on people's mannerisms, key things that they're known for saying, like words or phrases. Just like the facial expressions that they like. I find all of the repetition. You know, like her dad, for example. It's the same thing. Like he does these things that are so consistent that like I've picked up on, and just kind of like the way he is, that I'll like do it for her, and like, and it's hard to give an example. Like with me and the impressions, it's hard to like. It just kind of has to flow. I can, but like I don't. It's not best when I just like do it for an example. Like it just has to like flow into the conversation. If that makes sense.
Sure.
But like there'll be times when we'll be talking about something, and or I'll just do it to make her laugh. Like if I find an opportunity, like her dad does this thing where like he'll be, you'll be talking, or you're having a conversation, and like a key part will come up, and he'll just go like, oh, and it's just like the funniest thing. And if you know him, like you pick up on it and you laugh because you're like, that's what he does.
You know who you do a great Coop. He does a Coop, which is funny.
I don't even know if I do.
You do everyone.
Oh, we got to see some of it.
No, we don't have to see it, but
it's only fair that I do it for Coop.
Yeah,
that's fair. No, you know what? That's fair.
He deserves to have it first.
John Carney's watching. He does the John Carney.
Oh, that's easy. And I've done it for John. Like, and John's seen me do it. And with John, it's easy. It's bro, I got this new steak from Meat and Bone. Lights out. He knows.
He loves that phrase, man. It's good stuff.
It's lights out. That's his thing. It's lights out. Yeah, there's a lot of people I can do. And it's one of those things. It was one of those. I don't know. And again, I don't know how or why it started. It's something I was able to pick up on and then naturally just emulate people's things. I do it a lot of times when I make fun of people, who annoy me, because it's just my way of like sticking it to them, I guess. But then it kind of turned into something fun too, where like I pick up on stuff that people do. Um, and sometimes that's just part of me telling the story. I present the character and it makes it more real, you know. It I guess it's one of my not secret, but it's one of those like
Talents.
it's one of those like hidden talents I have that maybe people don't know about.
One day, hopefully, maybe you can do your bear impression because I'd love to hear that.
I don't really have one for you yet.
Yeah, he
It's-
hasn't done a bear impression yet.
It's not
but
one of those things where like I study people to figure it out. It just kind of like happens.
Some people don't do anything interesting enough to denote.
Ooh, nice dig.
No.
Wow.
But I'm just saying they don't do anything.
I wouldn't have even
that's-
said that. It just kind of happens naturally. It's my answer.
Okay,
my
well,
lights out comment for Carney is, with him with the baby on the way and everything, he's going to be wishing he can say that.
Bro, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
He's gonna wish for bedtime to happen so he can put lights out, sweetheart.
Lights out. Have you had that? Hey, have you had that new Alec Bradley? Dude, I smoked it the other day. Lights out. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So good. So good.
I don't think he's watching anymore, else he would have had a
No.
side comment now.
Yeah, he'll just text me later and be like, bro, your impersonation of me, lights out.
No.
Oh man. Yeah, like I said, it just happens. It's just natural. Matt was a fun one though, because I actually got feedback from Abe on that one because I did it on KMA and then I got some feedback. And so then I went back to the drawing board and I actually which I never do. Like I don't actually go and try to make it better because it's all just kind of natural for me. But I actually went back with the booth one and I'm like, oh, I have a little bit of feedback and I made it a little better. So it's better than the original. But I busted out, I busted it out for him. Like when I saw him at the trade show, I came around the corner. We were drifting that first morning and I came around the corner and there he is at his booth, just standing there setting up. And he wasn't even in his cute little suit that he was wearing too. And he just saw me and he's like, And he had a bag of samples with him and he just pulls it out and he throws it right at my face. Smoke this, start your day. What is it? I remember catching him being like, oh, what is it? He's like, who gives a fuck? Just smoke it. God, it's a free cigar. I'm sorry. Good morning. How are you?
Salutations.
And then when you ask him to do something, he's like, I would be enchanted. Matt, can we do this interview now? I would be enchanted. Please sit. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. That's all you got. That's all you got. I'm sorry.
So, of course, another amazing story comes out of the PCA. We've talked a little bit about it tonight and everything. So, of course, that is the big engagement, the proposal.
Oh yes.
Mhm.
The biggest news of the 2021 PCA trade show.
It's up there. I wouldn't say the biggest. That's a little cocky. Man.
No,
Irrelevant, I would say. is
Yeah,
the-
irrelevant, I think, was the biggest story.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get into that. I don't think so.
The engagement was relevant.
Yeah, it was.
So, so Matt, you're the one who obviously asked the lovely Nicole to marry you, and so
Did.
how long was this plan in the works? Did you know for a while that you were going to pop the question at PCA, or did it become a little bit more abrupt? Like what went into the planning here?
Well, I would say, I knew for a while that I'd be asking her. I knew for a long time that it would be, in the city of Las Vegas. Whether or not it was during a trade show or not was a separate thing. But I wanted to do it there because, as you had, mentioned to the audience before, who probably don't know this, is that, Vegas is a favorite city of mine. It's a special city to me. Not because I like to go party and gamble. It has a lot of other personal connection to me. And so, during the pandemic, obviously we weren't going out, but we couldn't travel. And it was one of those things where that was a place I had missed a lot, and it was just like, oh, when this is over, like that's one of the first places I'm going. I want to go back, because I just I need to be there, and during that time, when I had come to that realization about Nicole, I'm like, well, that's where I want to do it. And then the next time we went was for a trade show, so I'm like, well, this is when I'm doing it, because this is where I want to do it, and I don't want to do it anywhere else. This is where it's going to be, so it's going to happen now. And I spent probably like a good 3 months prior putting it all together, between the process of getting the ring, which is a long story, which I won't get into on the air. But the long story short with that is I did a good job on that one. I put a lot of work into it. I had a lot of connections from my previous life in the jewelry industry. It really helped me take care of that. So that was cool. You know, kind of getting ideas from some people. I had this this very picturesque ideal setting and scene in my mind that unfortunately didn't happen, just because of a lot of I really won't get into the whole story, but just a lot of
Weather.
what's the word,
Heat.
logistical reasons. It just didn't pan out. So the first attempt that was being made didn't really pan out, and then I kind of pulled the plug on it because I didn't want to just ruin the moment by trying to salvage a missed opportunity, so to speak.
You didn't want
So
to force it. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't want that to be the moment that she remembered forever. So I was like, even though she will, that wasn't the moment. So it ended up being at the last, at the last minute, I came up with a whole new plan and a whole new place. Um, and it happened, and it was great, and she was happy and all that. So, but yeah, no, I mean, it was, whether or not PCA was in town though, like that's just where it was going to happen. So I just capitalized on that opportunity, and I think we were both happy about that. So
You don't have to react it or anything, but I mean, was it a long speech? Was it a short speech? I mean, what you know?
I think that it was a shorter speech, because Nicole knows how I feel about her, and
And Matt's the more emotional one in the relationship.
well, yeah, but I mean, it wasn't like a whole Pete Johnson. Pete, I told him before, that I was doing it or whatever, and he was like, he's like, you're gonna cry. He's like, if you don't cry, then I'm like, no, I'm not. He's like, no, you're gonna cry. He's like, trust me, you're gonna cry. And so then after, when we saw him the next day, he was like, did you cry? No. And he's like, yeah, you did. Don't fucking lie to me. So
Was
yeah,
he
no, I
right?
mean,
Was he right? Was it a really
a little
emotional
bit,
moment?
a very
Okay.
little bit, a very little bit. I think she cried more than I did. But I mean, shit, I forgot. I lost my train of thought.
It's just, I mean, it's just a moment.
Do you remember what he said? Do you remember what he said, Nicole? Again, you don't have to
No.
retell me or like react it, but
I honestly, I don't remember. But we already knew, just in our past, we've both been with people for a long period of time. He was with someone for 6 years. I was with someone for 6 years who I was engaged to previously. And so we've had these long relationships that didn't work out. And so when you then meet someone and and you just know, I don't know. So,
Mhm.
our time together hasn't been that long, but you just know.
but
There's
it's been
nothing else I
meaningful.
can say. It's
Yeah.
just, it clicks and it doesn't. And what clicked with Matthew didn't click for 6 years with someone else. So, so that's all.
Yeah, I mean,
That's it.
you could spend 6 years
Yeah.
or whatever it is with someone before you realize. And you know what? If that happens, but you realize it, and then you guys get married and you stay happy forever, and that's great. But I almost got into a situation where I was with someone for a long time, and I wanted to do it because I felt like I had to, because it was so much time had gone by, and I since realized like that's not the reason you should do it, because then that opens you up to a whole nother set of issues. For me, it was a very easy decision. I mean, and it's not hard to figure out why. You know what I mean? So, um, once I knew very quickly that she was the one, and I waited patiently for the right time. And then when I knew that it was probably going to be happening, I started to put my ducks in a row and put the whole thing together. And it didn't happen. And again, it didn't happen exactly the way I wanted it to, but it was still successful in the end. So that's all that matters.
She
And
said
she's
yes.
happy.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
And you
so,
cried a little bit. So
a little bit. Yes, Pete Johnson. I cried a little bit. Okay. So yeah, no, I mean, it was a special moment, and it was nice, I guess, that it did happen at the same time as the show, because a lot of our friends and peers of the industry were in town, and we got to share that with everybody. And we spent a whole, it happened, what was that, so it was supposed to be Friday, it ended up happening Saturday, so we spent Sunday and Monday and Tuesday with everyone in town, like, celebrating. And every time we ran into people, they were all excited. And people we didn't even know who like follow us online were just coming up to us and congratulating us. There was one, I don't want to make Nicole look bad, but there was one person who came up to us and was like all excited, and I know him, and like congratulated us and the whole thing. And he walked away, and she's like, "Who was that?" And I was like, "Seriously? That's so and so from so and so?" And she's like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, "Yeah." It was kind of funny because we were getting.
Matt's the one with the memory. I can't remember anything ever.
So
He can remember everything.
But it was fun. It was special. So
that's great.
it just made and you guys were there. You were with us too. For almost every day. So it was cool. Everyone was there. We got to really just celebrate right away.
That's beautiful. It was great to share that moment with you guys by proxy, and yeah, I mean, I wish you years and years of happiness. So congratulations again to you too.
Thanks, Bear.
Thanks.
So got one last question for you guys, and as always, it's our curveball segment. But before I do that, I always want to thank my guests, as always, for sharing their Sunday nights with me. Thank God for Labor Day, so that Matt doesn't have to get up in a few hours to go to work. So thank God for that, and really do appreciate your time. This is still personal time. It is still family time. Like you said, we have lives outside of the industry, and for you guys to sit down and share your story with me and have this conversation, it just it sincerely means the world to me. So thank you so much for your time tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it. We love being here with you, Bear.
And props to Nicole for representing Boston tonight. So love the shirt.
I wore it just for you, Bear.
Thank you so
I know
much.
you always have something on.
Yeah, got her rep always. Thank you so much for that. Shame on you, Matt. Shame on you for not repping, but that's okay. You got the brand. Your brand.
As Booth would say, this is my cigar uniform, so I have to wear it. I don't have a choice. Indeed. Please continue.
Please. So always, our curveball segment is brought to you by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Sock has been knocking them out of the park 6 consecutive years in the consensus top 3. Yep, I looked it up, and I even got fact checked by my partner in crime on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition, Mr. Will Cooper. So here it is, folks, your curveball segment. So it doesn't have to be a particular interview, doesn't have to be a particular show, but I am omitting one show from the list here. You cannot pick the massacre, but if there's a show or an interview that you feel like, man, you really want to redo, you wish you could really go back in time and redo that whole thing, there's things you wanted to say, things you wanted to do, it just did not go the way you wanted, which interview or which show would that be?
It's a good one.
There was nothing that bad.
Well, there's
it's just
always
that we
something.
wish we. Well, no. Just
I think for me, I'm a little bit more critical than she is too.
Yeah.
She's much more like, no, that was a good show. I get to.
There's always another show in my mind.
To me, it's always I
Just
look
we
at
don't
it,
have enough time.
the same way, like, what's like a good comparison? like the way like an athlete might compare a game that they played. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we
Sure.
won the game and like I scored a lot of points. It's like, yeah, but like I didn't play my best. I kind of look at it like that. Like there's shows that I've done where like you could say the show was successful, the audience enjoyed it, everything happened for the most part maybe the way it should have, or the guest was happy, but and everyone else was happy, and like Carney would be like, oh, good show, we'll sign off, and I'll be like, nah, that fucking show sucked. And then it'd be like, what do you mean? It's like, well, it was off here, I was off here, and we weren't prepared in this aspect or whatever, and I analyze and I get too critical. So I would say for me, the show that I wish I could have redone was the show we did with Sean Williams from Cohiba. It just there was a few things that I dropped the ball on in terms of my preparation.
The other thing is it wasn't a great atmosphere for him.
Yeah.
He was in a cigar shop that was very loud.
Got it.
And so obviously when you're interviewing someone and there's a lot of background noise, it's not great for actual production quality. So I can see that, but the content was fine.
Sean's such a cool cat, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a great
Yeah.
guy, and we were happy he came on, and it wasn't on him, it was on me. I wasn't happy with the way, I did the show for him, with him, however you want to look at it.
Well,
So,
sometimes
no,
you
I
get in
mean,
your own head too, right? Like you feel
yeah.
like it's
So I
going.
mean, and again, like that's a great question, and I think I want to reiterate, unless there's a real reason for it, it's never, for a show that doesn't go well, for the most part, I won't say never, but for the most part, it's not on the guest. It's not his fault. It's not on him. It's on me. You know what I mean? I'm the one putting the show together and being prepared for the show. So if a show doesn't go well because I don't feel prepared, or I did something wrong, or I made a mistake that I shouldn't have made, or did something, whatever, like that's on me, and I get more critical of myself than Nicole does. So
I get critical too, but so for me, it would be every show that my sound issue was still happening.
yeah, that's true.
It took us a while. So, producing the show, there was an issue with my microphone, and sound was an issue for us for a while where it wasn't perfect. So
Yeah, the way
Um,
that the microphone interface system connected into the computer, we found out with Mac it runs a little bit differently, and
Yeah.
it even if you have multiple channels, it comes in as one channel. So we had to figure out kind of how to run, and I think I had to give Coop some advice on this too, if I remember correctly, because he runs a similar setup, and I remember him saying he had a similar issue. But yeah, I mean I would say that was, I think that also happened on that episode too. That was one of the issues that I had with that
Yeah.
episode. So yeah, that was a big one.
Terrific.
What about you, Bear? Why don't you tell us?
Ooh,
Make us
trying to-
feel better, Bear.
Remember, unlike most of your guests, I sit on that side of the table too.
That's
So why don't
true.
you tell
You do.
me?
Yeah.
No, I think you're spot on with a couple of things, and I kind of echo Nicole's sentiment about like that there really aren't bad shows. They're just in the way I view it, is there's missed opportunities.
Yeah.
Things that I wish that could have gone differently, and I'll do the same thing with this show later on. I'm the same way as you, man. I'm very critical of myself and everything that I do, because I think that again, the whole premise of my show is asking questions that I find interesting and stuff, and it, this sounds very distant or disconnected or not engaged with my audience, but there, feedback from guests, feedback from my audience is great and everything, but if I ask the questions that I wanted to ask, then I consider that a successful show. And so it really doesn't matter if anyone else, to me, it doesn't really matter if anyone else finds it interesting. If I found it interesting, then I've accomplished the goal. But no, I think that the show that I would probably want to redo on, this is again, really great question to turn back on me. And I've answered this a couple of times, and in fact, I even answered it kind of on your show and everything. It was it turned out to be one of the more fascinating conversations because we got a little bit into his childhood, which I found incredibly fascinating and interesting, which was George Ramy of Camacho.
Mm.
He was a really challenging guest, not because George is difficult. George is incredible. He's a likable person. That's why he does an incredible job with Camacho as a brand ambassador. He's done it for years, and I found it challenging because other than the surface level brand ambassador, I really didn't know George. And so going into that interview, as much preparation as I did, I felt like I was still underprepared. And it ended up being a great show because again, we got into his childhood a little bit, and he told that incredible story about how he was the son of a diplomat, and that one point there was a hand grenade tossed into his living room where his baby sister had been playing just moments before, and it was his father was a diplomat for Honduras, to paint some context around the situation. So it tumultuous time in the 90s when his father was serving, and so it really shed light on some really interesting facets of his childhood and his life, and I thought, so for that matter, it was great. But yeah, I felt very unprepared going into that interview, just because, again, apart from the incredible work that he does from Camacho, I really didn't know much about the man, and left that night with a lot more understanding of who he was. And I thought, so while I thought it was poor going into it, and I ultimately came away somewhat satisfied because I got to learn more about an incredible person, because he is. And so,
Well, one of the things that I learned from you, actually, this is a piece of advice you've given me. Um, I think I actually talked to you about that episode, or another episode or something like that before, and mentioning that I felt underprepared, and I asked like the wrong questions, or like I asked a question and I was wrong with the question in terms of what I was asking, and I should have been more prepared about it. And I remember you kind of saying like, well, it's not always a bad thing. That's kind of part of it too. Like maybe sometimes you ask something assuming that the answer is A, but you're wrong and it's B. And sometimes that's just part of what makes the conversation good. It doesn't necessarily make you look bad. It's just kind of like, oh, well, hey, maybe I learned something new there.
mhm.
So I learned that from that and from you, as a result of that. So I mean, there is positive ways you can look at it too, is what I'll say.
No, I 100% agree. That the way that I frame these conversations and everything is that, a lot of times I go into it with the attorney aspect, right? Never ask a question you don't know the answer to, but and sometimes it's actually brought about the best content. You know,
Right.
is
Yeah.
is again, you learn something about the person, and and there's just been some fascinating people that I've had the chance to interview, and I've really enjoyed speaking with everyone. So like, people always ask me like, what's your favorite show? And you asked me that question. I was like, hey, I'll give you three, and I'll give you three examples of why they were some of my favorites. But I mean, I can rattle off feelings about every single interview that I've had, and positively, and some negative too. Like I said, I'm my own biggest critic. But the the again, the reason I love doing the show is that I love learning about the person across from me, or the people across from me. And the story kind of unfolds itself, and it tells itself in a lot of times. And that's when I guess the real magic happens. So
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Um, and then that kind of goes back to like our whole concept with the show. We want it to be. That's why we don't have show notes. That's why we don't follow a script. When we ask questions and we get into certain conversations, we want it to be organic as possible, and we also want the audience to feel that too.
mhm.
So while I do like to be prepared, so that way, like I have some idea. I also, I like to have those surprise things come up too, because it makes it more genuine. You know,
Well,
um,
you asked me too at PCA. You're like, hey, we're gonna have you on. Like, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, hey, man, it's your show. Let's roll. Let's do it. There's no question I won't answer, and let's just roll with it. And
yeah, and to me, like that's the best thing. Just like I'll even ask you, like, hey, what do you want to talk about? And then people are like, you're asking me? Yeah, I am, because you know what? you know, I don't want it to just be like, okay, here's the story, and like this is what we're doing. Like, no, I want it to be like, what do you want to talk about? Oh, I want to, hey, let's talk. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, let's talk about that. I want it to be organic and natural. And you know, and Carney was really the one who came up with that concept from the beginning. He's like, you know, we have to find a way to make this show different. You know, we should do it more of like, you know, there's a lot of really deep industry shows, you know, like Coop's show or a lot of other people's show, and it's not a bad thing. Those are great shows, you know, but we want to be different. You know, we want to be different so that
You
we
want to be
able
lights out. Yeah.
we want to be lights out. So, you know, that was kind of like what we came up with, and you know, always just being really genuine. Now, the funny part about that is anyone who's ever been involved in Hacking Gourmet knows John is big on show notes, and when you don't follow the show notes, he gets bent out of shape. And as someone who's very close to John, I can tell you, I've had firsthand experience with this, and he was all disappointed when I didn't follow his show notes on his Christmas episode. And I was trying to follow along, but in my defense, he didn't have them color coded and bolded properly. And I was reading stuff. He's like, you don't read that part. And I'm like, well, it's the same as the part that I do read. So I don't know. But I digress. And I said, John, this is why I don't do show notes, because they're useless to me. I don't follow them. So he knows how I feel about the show notes. I'm not shy. I know he's watching. And I've told him before, so it's all good. But yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles, as I like to say.
Indeed. Guys, it's been an absolute joy talking with you this evening. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate our audience for staying up late as always and tuning in for this was a fantastic take, and really appreciate everyone who's tuning in. Always your likes, comments, and shares mean everything. If you are watching us later on YouTube, we have a YouTube channel, ELOSOFUMAR. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. You can always follow us live every Sunday night at 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, right here on our Facebook page, ELOSOFUMAR. We've got a calendar of upcoming events and posted some upcoming guests. Was posted earlier this week. We've got some great takes on the horizon, including we mentioned him tonight, Dave Garofalo of Two Guys Smoke Shop will be coming in a couple weeks. Next week will be the executive director of the Premium Cigar Association, Mr. Scott Pierce, Chris Monaco of Amendola Cigar Company, Henderson Ventura, Justin Andrews, all coming up in weeks ahead. So you don't want to miss those takes. So it'll be fantastic to tune in for those. If you are listening to us wherever you listen to podcasts later on, don't forget to hit the download, subscribe, and review buttons. If you are a subscriber, do me a favor, please hit the unsubscribe button, but don't forget to hit the resubscribe, because it really helps my numbers and helps me bring on continual great guests like my two amazing guests this evening. It's been my pleasure to sit here and talk with Matt Tabacco and Smokin Nicole all evening. We always appreciate it. This was our 182nd take. I've done 182 of these. This is incredible. And as always, we'll see you next week live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studios of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always. Guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.